Chapter 4760. In his early years, the black bear spirit was always in the limelight in front of Xiaohua. However, after returning from the upper realm and becoming famous in the Thousand Beasts sacred grounds, he gradually restrained himself. Whenever there was a meeting in the Fortune Dao Palace, he would participate in it, but he never spoke much. Today, even when they were discussing whether they should stay or leave, he did not speak much. He was not like before, clamoring to be Xiaohua's guard. Black Bear. Xiaohua called out warmly. Great Master. The black bear's spirit immediately responded, and his voice sounded like he was about to cry. Are you also staying? Xiaohua asked. The black bear's spirit nodded. Yes. This little one is Master's guard, so naturally, I have to stay in the Fortune Dao Palace to watch over Master. You don't have to stay. Xiaohua pondered for a moment, then said to Lu Yi, order the Thousand Beasts sacred grounds and Fortune Gates disciples to return. Try to return within 10 days. Yes, this disciple understands. Lu Yi hurriedly agreed, but then he smiled bitterly. Master, 10 days. I'm afraid we won't make it in time. And you don't have to worry about it. Xiaohua nodded and said to Feng Wu, I'll leave this matter to fellow Taoist. Understood. Feng Wu said, when this matter is over, I'll make a trip to the Thousand Beasts sacred grounds. Great Master. The black bear spirit cried. This little one didn't do anything wrong. Why must Master punish this little one? When did this old man say I was punishing you? Xiaohua smiled and pointed at Xiong Yi and the others, saying, they are humans, and they need to go to the Thousand Beasts world to reproduce. Without the protection of the demonic beasts, how can they succeed? You, White Lion and Golden Eagle are my Fortune Gate's 3 beast kings, and this heavy responsibility is yours. So that's how it is. The black bear spirit suddenly understood. Who knew if he was really stupid, but he quickly kowtowed and said, this little one will not disappoint Master's trust. Go, all of you go and prepare. Xiaohua signaled for the disciples to leave. After all the disciples had left, Xiaohua looked at Lightning Reverend and the others with a smile on his face. He said, the 10 of us can't all leave, 1 or 2 must stay behind. Otherwise, the Fortune Gate will belong to someone else before we can break the formation. That's right. Taoist Wu nodded. We haven't found a strand of the primordial chaos ancestor's primordial spirit. Who knows where he is hiding? There must be a cultivator at the pinnacle of the 9th grade of essence energy guarding the Fortune Dao Palace. Of course it's I. The Lightning Reverend shouted, I am the 2nd master of the Fortune Gate. Now that the 1st master has passed away, it is naturally I's turn to take over the Fortune Gate. Unfortunately, Xiaohua looked at the Lightning Sage and shook his head slightly. He said, fellow Taoist Lightning, the Immortal formation is divided into 3 layers. They are the Taoist Immortal formation, the Buddhist sect Immortal formation, and the Demon race Immortal formation. You are a Tao cultivator, so you are responsible for breaking the Taoist Immortal formation. Isn't fellow Taoist Xiao a Grand Ascension Stage Taoist as well? The Lightning Taoist was perplexed. You can also break through the formation. No. Xiaohua looks at the Thunderbolt Immortal who is devoid of humanity and shakes his head. You, Buddha Maitreya, the world-honored one, Feng Wu and Celestial Being cannot stay. All right. Hearing Xiaohua's resolute words, the Lightning Reverend did not understand why, so he could only nod his head dejectedly and agree. Xiaohua looked at his clones worriedly. Taoist Yun and Demon Venerable sure could not stay. They needed to push down the 3 peaks with him. Only Taoist Wu and Wenchu could stay. However, the Dawn Rain continent was different from the other 3 continents. The Dawn Rain continent had 1,000,000 mountains. Xiaohua could not guarantee that he could return to the Dawn Rain continent through the spatial tunnel. What if he landed on the other side of the 1,000,000 mountains? He still remembered clearly that he had an agreement with the Shaman King. Taoist Wu would follow him to the depths of the mysterious 1,000,000 mountains. He would definitely be a great help. If that was the case, then the only one who could stay was Wenchu. Seeing Xiaohua's gaze fall on his face, Wenchu smiled and said, Hee, Master Xiao Lei, let this king take charge of the Fortune Dao Palace. All right. Then I will have to trouble the master of Wenchu Palace. As Xiaohua spoke, he took out the Xianyuan sword and handed it to Wenchu. I don't care about the Dragon Island, Great Sage Palace, and Thunder Temple. What I fear the most is the Immortal Palace. Immortal Emperor Gaochun's desire to destroy my Dao sect seems to have not given up yet. With the Xianyuan sword, you can fend off his Son of Heaven sword. Ha! Wenchu waved his hand and said, Fellow Immortal, you are wrong. If I leave the Xianyuan sword here, it will only attract the attention of Gaochun. It is better to leave it with you. It will serve as a deterrent. Xiaohua thought for a moment, then put away the Xianyuan sword and nodded. Fellow Immortal is right. It is more suitable for I to take it. At this point, the Maitreya Buddha of the world suddenly stood up and said, Bodhisattva, I will leave for a moment. Since I am leaving, I need to settle down the exquisite temple. Also, regarding the news of the Dragon Sage, I need to inform the Mahavairocana Buddha of the world. Buddha of the world, please. Xiaohua nodded. The Maitreya Buddha of the world reached out and pulled at the void. As if opening a door, he disappeared in a flash. Seeing this, the Phoenix Wu also flapped her wings and tore the void apart. She smiled and said, Forget it, forget it. This saint will also make a trip to the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. Thank you for your trouble, Phoenix Sage. Xiaohua smiled as he watched the Phoenix Wu leave. He then looked at Princess Qingqing and said, Qingqing, are you leaving with fellow Taoist Lei? Princess Qingqing stood below the Fortune Dao Palace's high platform. She did not dare to breathe loudly because she already understood everything. What great sage of the Great Sage Temple? What scholar palace master of the Immortal Palace? What Buddhist sect's Maitreya Buddha of the world? They were all sect masters of the Fortune Gate. The Fortune Gate was not only a Dao sect that could rival the Immortal Palace, Thunder Sound Temple, and Great Sage Temple, but it was also the #1 Dao sect in the world. This was definitely the world's greatest secret. Princess Qingqing also understood that now that she knew this secret, how could Xiaohua let her go? She did not have any time to think and hurriedly replied, Yes, that is right. No matter where Lei goes, I will follow. Good. Xiaohua nodded and said, Since that is the case, you and Yu Xiaxia should pack up and follow Princess Zixia. However, right when he spoke up to hear, Princess Zixia spoke abruptly, Darling Xiao, I won't be going. I will accompany the Scholar Palace Master to guard the Fortune Dao Palace. Ah? Xiaohua was shocked. He looked at Princess Zixia in disbelief and asked curiously, What the hell are you doing? How can you not go? Your cultivation is shallow and can't help. If you stay here. Speaking of this, Xiaohua's heart suddenly softened. He seemed to understand Princess Zixia's thoughts. Chapter 4761. Sure enough, Princess Zixia bowed and said, Sect Master, you've seen it for yourself. Your disciples, Lu Yi, Fujiwen, and the others, have all chosen to stay in the 3 continents and fight the world-destroying ephemera to the death. Everyone will be timid in front of death, and I am no exception. If you had not found the way to break the array, I believe that they would not have stayed so resolutely. At this moment, the reason they stayed behind was because they trusted you. They believed that you would definitely be able to break through the Grand Formation and save the 3 continents from the apocalypse. What made them stay? Was their trust in you. But you left, and so did the 8 elders. Although the master of the Palace of Literature is here, it is obviously not enough. So, Xiao, I have to stay. I will stay here and let them know that you will definitely come back. With me here, only you can stay with them. Zixia. Xiaohua bit his lips and only said 2 words after a long while. He did not know how to express his feelings. Furthermore, Elder Sect Master. Zixia smiled again. Although the Master of the Palace of Literature is at the peak of the 9th level of origin power, and no one in this world is his match, when it comes to strategizing, he is still lacking. Although my cultivation level is not high, I can be a very good advisor. Xiaohua lowered his head and muttered to himself for a moment. He then discussed with Wenchu in his mind and nodded. Zixia, you are right. With you here, it is a huge reassurance pill. It's more useful than 10 sect masters. Xiaohua waved his hand and took out the few pills in his space. He handed them to Wenchu and said, "Fellow Immortal, these pills can kill the king of monster insects." But Wenchu nodded and took the pills. But at this moment, Princess Qingqing suddenly shouted, "Sect Master, I also want to stay." Xiaohua's expression changed slightly. He said coldly, "Why are you staying?" "Shut up, why are you staying?" The Thunder Venerable was also furious. Princess Qingqing did not pay attention to them. She looked at Princess Zixia and said, "Xin, you and I have been fighting for a lifetime. At this time, I am tired and do not want to fight with you anymore. I just want to ask you, among the 9 princesses of the Immortal Palace, who is the leader of the conspiracy?" Princess Zixia frowned slightly. She looked at Princess Qingqing, then at Xiaohua, and said proudly, "If we're talking about an overt plot, then it's naturally this princess. But who is the #1 schemer?" Princess Qingqing asked. "Isn't that obvious? Of course, the 5th princess is the winner." When Princess Zixia said that, there was no mockery in her voice. She already understood what Princess Qingqing wanted to say. "That's right. I can't compare to you in terms of overt schemes." Princess Qingqing smiled. "But in terms of schemes, you're no match for me. If that immortal emperor wants to make a move against the Fortune Gate, will he use an overt scheme or a hidden one?" Princess Zixia smiled and said, "Of course it's an overt scheme and a conspiracy, and there are even more conspiracies." "That's right." Princess Qingqing chuckled. "In this Fortune Gate, I'm afraid no one is more confident than me in seeing through His Majesty's schemes. So, if I don't stay behind, who will?" Princess Qingqing then turned to the Thunderbolt Master and said, "Thunderbolt, it's not that I don't want to go with you. In fact, in my eyes, whether the 3 mainlands are destroyed or not has nothing to do with me. As long as I follow you, even if the world is destroyed, I'm willing. However, the Fortune Gate is yours. Even the Sect Master has left his lover behind as a reassuring pill. As the Sect Master, you can't ignore it. How about this concubine stay behind to guard this place on your behalf?" The Thunderbolt Master looked at Princess Qingqing for a long time without saying anything. Even if Xiaohua called out to him in his heart, he ignored him. In the end, when Princess Qingqing was feeling a little apprehensive, the Thunderbolt Master said, "Qingqing, as long as you're sincere and have no ulterior motives, then, when I return from breaking the formation, I'll definitely marry you." As if the same lightning bolt had struck Princess Qingqing, she couldn't move for half a cup of tea's time. Princess Qingqing said in disbelief, "Thunderbolt, is what you said true?" "Of course it's true." The Thunderbolt Master said word by word. Xiaohua looked at Wenchu, then at Daoist Sorcerer. Everyone else also looked at each other in dismay. This Thunderbolt Master, who was immature, could actually say such serious words. This was really out of their expectations. Hearing the Thunderbolt Master's affirmation, Princess Qingqing couldn't help crying. She covered her mouth with her hand, trying her best not to lose her composure. However, the hot tears still flowed down her beautiful cheeks. "Zixia." Xiaohua couldn't make up his mind. He looked at Princess Zixia and asked through voice transmission, "What do you think?" Princess Zixia bit her lips. Looking at the tears flowing down Princess Qingqing's face, Princess Zixia saw a rare weakness in Princess Qingqing's eyes. Princess Zixia wasn't a petty person. She pondered for a moment and said through voice transmission, "All right. This is the final test. I hope she can pass the test." "All right." Xiaohua also made up his mind. He nodded and said, "Princess Qingqing, since you're willing to stay on behalf of the Thunderbolt Master, then you can stay. However, I'll say this first. You don't have the right to make decisions in any matter, only the right to make suggestions. If the Literature Palace's master discovers anything unusual about you, don't blame him for being ruthless. If it were any other time, Princess Qingqing would have already turned hostile. At the very least, she would have given Xiaohua a cold face. However, with the Thunderbolt Master's promise, Princess Qingqing felt a little resentful in her heart. However, she didn't show it on her face. Instead, she nodded and said, "I understand. Sigh, it's been hard on you all." Xiaohua sighed. With a wave of his sleeve, he brought Princess Xia out of the Fortune Dao Palace. In the blink of an eye, they were already in the sky above the West Sea. Xiaohua. Princess Xia's face was slightly hot as if she knew what was going to happen. Xiaohua waved his hand and released the Pegasus flying chariot. He pulled Princess Xia into the flying chariot and said with a smile, "I'll be gone for many years. I don't know when I'll be able to return, and I don't even know if I'll be able to return. Today, I'll drink with you." With that, Xiaohua took out a few cosmos bags and handed them to Princess Xia. He said, "I don't know what you need. Take these, I hope they'll be useful to you." Alright. Princess Xia took them and put them away without even looking at them. Then she said, "Xiaohua, where's the wine brewed from the peaches of immortality? Don't be stingy, this concubine has been craving for it for a long time. Give it as a reward, and thank you for all your support." Chapter 4762. Of course. Xiaohua's eyes were moist. He took out the jade pot and took out some peaches and spiritual fruits that Xia had never seen before. Princess Xia raised her wine cup and accompanied Xiaohua to drink a few cups. Afterwards, her eyes were moist as she stared at Xiaohua and said, "Xiaohua, when this concubine asked you about the matters of Xiaoyu continent earlier, you used the excuse of teaching this concubine the 5 energies unification technique to evade the question. Now, you're leaving and I don't know when you'll come back. Don't tell me. You want to hide it from me forever?" Hearing Princess Xia's words, Xiaohua felt dizzy. "Don't tell me that every woman in this world has discerning eyes?" "All right." Xiaohua nodded. "I didn't know if I could return to the Dawn Rain continent, so I wanted to bury the past in my memory. Now that I have the chance to go back, I can't hide it from you anymore." Tsk. Hearing Xiaohua speak so seriously, Xia couldn't help but cover her mouth and laugh. "Don't tell me. You also had romantic affairs in the Dawn Rain continent?" Xiaohua nodded awkwardly. "Not just one." "Really?" Princess Xia was surprised. She also stopped smiling and asked in a serious tone, "A man like you, who seems to be devoted to only one woman, actually has many close female friends? Alas, men really can't be trusted." Facing Princess Xia's disappointment, Xiaohua could only brace himself and tell her everything about Fairy Hong Xia and Shui. Although Princess Xia was a Confucian cultivator, she had been influenced by the 3 cardinal principles and 5 elements of Confucian cultivation since young. Moreover, she was born in the Immortal Palace, so it was normal for her to have 3 wives and 4 concubines. However, knowing was knowing and accepting was accepting. As the 9th princess of the Immortal Emperor, she couldn't help but feel repulsed by sharing her husband with others. The reason why she chose Xiaohua back then was, on one hand, because of Xiaohua's deep affection, and on the other hand, because of Xiaohua's purity. She even felt proud of it. Previously, when Princess Xia asked Xiaohua to tell her about his experience in the Dawn Rain continent, she was interrupted by Xiaohua. As astute as she was, she already had an idea and made some preparations. But when she heard Xiaohua admit it with her own ears, she naturally felt wronged. However, when she heard the story of how Xiaohua and Fairy Hong Xia met and fell in love, that grudge gradually disappeared. After all, at that time, she did not know Xiaohua at all. Fairy Hong Xia, as a high and mighty sect disciple, actually chose Xiaohua. That kind of love was not something she could compare to. Of course, Xiaohua didn't dare to conceal the matter of Fairy Hong Xia's cultivation going berserk. What could Princess Xia say now? Saving people was the most important thing. Naturally, there was no need to consider anything else. When Xiaohua brought up the matter of Shui, a wry smile appeared on Princess Xia's face. She already knew Xiaohua very well, and she knew that even though he was already the most powerful being on the 3 continents, his indecisive nature hadn't changed at all. From this, she could also imagine that day in the Imperial Thunder sect, Shui took the initiative to pursue Xiaohua, and Xiaohua was submissive and ambiguous with her. Princess Xia couldn't help but clench her teeth and pinch Xiaohua's arm, secretly blaming him for being unfaithful. When she heard that Fairy Hong Xia was angry because of Xiaohua's ambiguous behavior and made a choice, Princess Zixia heaved a sigh of relief and glared at Xiaohua, saying, "Serves you right. That's how it should be. I'll let you men know that there's no good end to being a womanizer outside." However, when she saw that Xiaohua didn't say anything and continued to speak with a calm face, Princess Zixia's heart thumped. She already had a bad premonition. Sure enough, when she heard that Xue Xue had no choice but to sacrifice herself to save Xiaohua, she couldn't help but clench her fists. Princess Zixia couldn't help but clench her fists. She sighed and said, "Darling Xiao, you've let Sister Xue down." Eyes. Xiaohua didn't withdraw his gaze and continued to look into the distance, replying, "I did let her down. But that really didn't know what love was. Moreover, after that, my feelings for Fairy Hongxia had somewhat died. When I compared her to Xue Xue, I always felt that she was too shallow and too self-righteous." No. Princess Zixia quickly waved her hand and said, "You can't say that about Fairy Hongxia. She wasn't wrong. Who could tolerate their lover having emotional entanglements with other women? Moreover, it wasn't easy for her. At that time, your strength wasn't strong and your reputation wasn't widespread. The pressure she was under was something you don't know. If you say she was wrong, then you're wrong." Xiaohua hurriedly nodded. "So after arriving at the 3 continents, I tried my best not to provoke female cultivators. Even you, at the beginning, only in the illusion of the profound water palace. Had a simple beginning. Later. To be honest, I also didn't know if I could return to the Dawn Rain continent. You were also very good to me and sacrificed a lot for me, so." Princess Zixia looked at Xiaohua and said, "This matter is also my fault. Because of that half a heaven's will, I was punished by His Majesty. I only felt that with your cultivation, I didn't know how many years it would take before you could rescue me. Moreover, I only felt that you had a good impression of me and didn't know if you could do more for me. So before I was suppressed, I begged His Majesty to give me some time to myself. It was out of my expectations that His Majesty actually agreed." "That's true." Hearing that Princess Zixia's tone was gentle and didn't have any intention of blaming him, Xiaohua hurriedly echoed, "Yes, His Majesty was indeed somewhat duplicitous. He was extremely strict with you, but in reality, when He punished you, He didn't really imprison you in the Heaven's Punishment Prison Crystal. Instead, He placed you in Liao River to be suppressed. Although it was to guard against the 4 great clans, it was beneficial for your cultivation and healing. This was also the real reason why I tolerated him later on." Yes, if His Majesty didn't agree, Qing. How could she have escaped from the Immortal Palace? Princess Zixia's train of thought had obviously been led astray by Xiaohua, so she casually said. However, after a moment, Princess Zixia came to her senses and looked at Xiaohua faintly. "Great spiritual master Xiao, now that you're a Taoist Mahayana realm cultivator and the #1 person in the 3 continents, you'll probably be one of the best in the Dawn Rain continent. Have already achieved the goal that Fairy Hongxia requested. When she sees you, she'll definitely be wild with joy and wholeheartedly stay by your side." "Look at what you're saying," Xiaohua said with a bitter smile. "I've already been honest with you, how can I not be honest with her? Moreover, as time passes, my heart has changed, maybe." "Shut up." Hearing this, Princess Zixia's expression changed greatly and she said angrily, "Xiaohua, if you judge Fairy Hongxia like this, then you don't need to see her anymore. Give it a reward, and thank you for all your support." Chapter 4763. Ever since Princess Zixia met Xiaohua, she had never turned hostile like this, regardless of whether Xiaohua was a little monk or a Taoist Mahayana realm cultivator. Her attitude made Xiaohua stunned. He asked curiously, What's wrong?" "Xiaohua." Princess Zixia's sullen expression didn't disappear, but she still suppressed the slight anger in her heart and said in a low voice, "You don't understand women at all. Fairy Hongxia was able to choose you before you had even shown your talent. Moreover, she had intimate contact with you, so how could she choose someone else? Not to mention that you left for hundreds of years, even if you ascended, she would still only have you in her heart. You used your thoughts to misunderstand her, you really let down her deep feelings for you." "But," Xiaohua said rather innocently, "that day, didn't she say that she wanted everyone to be quiet? Yes, she wanted to be quiet, but did you give her an answer? Did she give you an answer? Princess Wuxia said somewhat resentfully, after you left her, you were expelled by the Imperial Thunder sect, and then there was no news of you. In her heart, there was only concern and worry, so how could she still think about the previous agreement? You can go and find her without worry. If I guess wrong, you can just turn around and ignore her. Xiaohua was somewhat ashamed and said in a low voice, actually, I am somewhat afraid of seeing her. Princess Wuxia looked at Xiaohua from head to toe and said, Xiaohua, so you brought me to the Dawn Rain continent with the intention of letting me meet her alone? How could that be? Xiaohua touched his nose and said with a bitter smile, no matter how afraid I am, I can't let you meet her alone. Princess Wuxia looked at Xiaohua's familiar action and didn't say anything. She also raised her head and looked at the clouds rising and falling in the distance. The setting sun dyed the nearby horizon red. Her somewhat trembling, delicate body slowly leaned on Xiaohua's shoulder, and she didn't say anything for a long time. Xiaohua didn't know what Princess Wuxia was thinking, so he didn't dare to be too presumptuous. He only gently wrapped his arm around Princess Wuxia's waist. His mouth and nose were filled with the fragrance of Princess Wuxia's hair, and his gaze slowly followed the setting sun. Seeing the half-broken crescent moon, Princess Wuxia opened her mouth and said, Xiaohua. Xiaohua replied, I'm actually quite disappointed. Princess Wuxia said indifferently, because you're not as tall as I thought. Yes. What else could Xiaohua say? He could only lower his head and agree. However, even though I am disappointed, I don't have too many complaints, Princess Wuxia said. After all, men are different from women. The pursuit was a kind of conquest, a kind of stimulation, or a kind of possession. As for us women, we hope to have a kind of reliance, a kind of comfort, a kind of safety that we can entrust our lives to. Do you remember little white dragon's wives and concubines? They came when you were in seclusion. What we saw earlier was just the tip of the iceberg. Little White Dragon has dozens of wives and children. Why are there so many? Xiaohua was a bit flabbergasted. Dragon Clan. In the 3 continents, dragons are the most masculine and masculine races. Many female demons have a special liking for dragons. Princess Wuxia explained. Moreover, the demon clan only talks about sexual intercourse and reproduction, unlike the human clan, where sexual intercourse is more common. You can't look at the demon race with the eyes of a human. Then it's no wonder. Xiaohua agreed. However, we are humans. Naturally, we have to use human ethics to demand ourselves. We can't act recklessly like the demon clan. How would I dare? Xiaohua muttered, not daring to speak loudly. The corners of Princess Wuxia's mouth curled into a faint smile. She held Xiaohua's hand and said, Xiaohua, actually, you have already done well enough. I'm not too clear about the situation in the Dao sect. However, among us Confucian cultivators, having 3 wives and 4 concubines is considered normal. Moreover, if a man doesn't have wives and concubines, he'll be laughed at. Of course, if you have too many thoughts, I can't force you to do anything. After all, you're now the strongest person in the 3 continents. Besides the laws of heaven and earth, I'm afraid no one can restrict you. However, what I want to tell you is that when you have other thoughts, can you think about my feelings, think about Fairy Hongxia's feelings, and also think about Sister Shue's feelings? If you feel that you can give us an explanation, then I won't stop you. If you feel that we can't accept it, then please take back your thoughts. It has to be said that Wuxia, as the princess of the Immortal Palace, was far smarter than Shue and Fairy Hongxia. She was not like Shue who blindly followed Xiaohua, nor was she like Fairy Hongxia who casually berated Xiaohua and made him follow her own ideas. She only told Xiaohua her feelings and let him ask himself. Moreover, she made it clear that as long as Xiaohua felt that he didn't let her down, then Xiaohua could develop other relationships. The more she said this, the more Xiaohua wouldn't do anything against her. Wuxia, I swear. Xiaohua said matter-of-factly. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could finish speaking, Princess Wuxia covered his mouth with her hand and shook her head. Xiaohua, no one can be sure about the future. When you fell in love with Fairy Hongxia at first sight, did you think that you were far away from the Dawn Rain continent and couldn't return? Did you think that you would meet me? Even a few decades ago, did you think that you would be able to return to the Dawn Rain continent? There are too many uncertainties in the future. Moreover, don't forget that regardless of whether or not the three continents can survive the calamity, you will soon ascend. I don't know what the Immortal Realm is like, but I do know that you're going to. The Immortal Realm. I can't ascend to the Immortal Realm for the time being. Even if I did, I'd have to go to the Heavenly Court. You and I don't have the same path. Moreover, Xiaohua, I have a premonition that this journey will be eternal. I'm afraid that our fate will end here. We won't have the chance to meet again. Saying this, Princess Zixia turned her head and kissed Xiaohua's lips. A kind of sweetness immediately drowned Xiaohua. Happiness was like the profound water palace from a long time ago. The night was without a trace, the stars and the moon were boundless, and the West Sea was silent tonight. When the sun rose from the east, Xiaohua had a strange feeling in his heart. He said in a low voice, Zixia, you also saw the future? Princess Zixia's head leaned on Xiaohua's chest for the whole night. She felt that happiness was too little, so she casually replied. Then how do you know that we won't have the chance to meet again? Xiaohua asked cautiously. Princess Zixia rolled her eyes at him and said, when you return from the Dawn Rain continent, you will naturally have Fairy Hongxia by your side. Your heart still belongs to me alone now? At that time, you won't be who you are now. Chapter 4764. Phew. Xiaohua let out a long sigh of relief. It seems like once bitten, twice shy. Moreover, how could crossing realms be easy? There are many difficulties. Who knows when you'll reach the Dawn Rain mainland? Who knows if you'll be able to break the immortal array? What if you find out that the three continents have already been destroyed after breaking the immortal array? Princess Zixia continued, or, when you're on the way back to the Dawn Rain mainland, the heavenly tribulation suddenly descends. At that time, you already have no choice. AI, yes, the time left for me and the three continents is already running out. Xiaohua recalled the words of the Vairocana World Venerable. Presumably, this was what he saw when he used his great divine ability in the Thunder Temple. 100 years. No, only 90 years. Princess Zixia raised her head. The blush on her beautiful face had yet to fade, and tears were added to it. Xiaohua, I've waited for you for 90 years. If you don't return, I'll be killed by the world-exterminating mayfly. Xiaohua, you must remember, you must return. Xiaohua's heart ached and he whispered, Zixia, why do you have to? Xiaohua, you'll slowly understand in the future. Princess Zixia looked at Xiaohua lovingly and said, as a leader, it seems glorious, but you've also lost a lot. There are many things that can't be done recklessly, and there are many sacrifices to be made. Fujiwen and the others know that the Fortune Gate has a way to survive, but if the Fortune Gate leaves, the Fortune Gate, Xiaohua, and Taoist Master Xiao will go down in history in infamy. Even if Xiaohua can break the immortal array and return, this kind of loss of reputation is impossible to make up for. Once people start to doubt, the power of faith will fade. Fujiwen and the others can sacrifice for the Fortune Gate. For you, why can't I? Fujiwen and the others have confidence in you, why can't I? Since we all believe that you can return, why can't we wait here? Zixia. Xiaohua held Princess Zixia's hand and said, you've done too much for me. I'm afraid I won't be able to return it to you in this lifetime. Hee, it's precisely because you can't return it that you'll think of me in your heart. Princess Zixia mischievously pinches Xiaohua's earlobe and says, wait until you reach the immortal world and become a heavenly sovereign, immortal king, then my name will be engraved in your heart. Zixia. Xiaohua hugged Princess Zixia in his arms, as if he really wanted to carve her into his heart. Xiaohua. Princess Zixia also hugged Xiaohua and whispered, remember me, don't forget me. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. By the time Xiaohua and Princess Zixia landed on the first Dawn Reef, the Fortune Gate's disciples had already gathered. The greeting of greetings to the sect master was like a tsunami. Before Xiaohua could raise his hand to speak, another greeting of greetings to Princess Xixia was heard. This greeting was even louder than before. Obviously, the group of Fortune Gate's disciples already knew of Princess Xixia's decision and had accepted this immortal emperor's princess from the bottom of their hearts. Princess Xixia smiled and nodded. She didn't try to steal the attention of the host. Instead, she looked at Xiaohua. Xiaohua looked around as if he wanted to memorize every Fortune Gate disciple's appearance in his mind. A moment later, he spoke again. "Disciples, this old man will not betray your trust. We believe in the sect master." The group of disciples shouted in unison, their momentum soaring like a rainbow. Xiaohua looked at these disciples for a long time. He wanted to say something, but his throat seemed to be blocked, unable to say a word. After a long while, Xiaohua bowed and said, "This old man thanks all of you for sacrificing for the Fortune Gate." The group of disciples was shocked and hurriedly knelt and kowtowed. But Xiaohua waved his hand and stopped all the disciples, saying, "You don't need to return the greeting, all of you are qualified to receive this old man's bow. Your actions will definitely be recorded in the history of the three mainlands, and leave behind our Fortune Gate's legend in the 4 continents. Yes, we will not betray Master's trust." The group of disciples didn't dare to disobey. All of them straightened their backs and answered. Their voices soared high into the sky, shattering the clouds in the 9 heavens. Their voices fell into the western sea, causing waves to rise. Perhaps the brush of history couldn't record the names of millions of Fortune Gate disciples, but their names were engraved in the 4 continents. Fellow Taoist Lightning. Xiaohua waved his hand and threw the Kunlun mirror to the lightning Taoist who was holding Princess Qingqing's hand, saying, "I'll have to trouble you to take away all the disciples who should leave. They want to create a new situation for our Fortune Gate in the 10,000 demon world. They are also our Fortune Gate's heroes. Also, take away the descendants of the Confucian cultivators, Buddhist sect, demonic beast race, and dragon race." Yes. The lightning Taoist took the Kunlun mirror and flew to the side with Princess Qingqing. Black bear, white lion, golden eagle, and other demonic beast race disciples, Xiong Yi, Li Xiang, and other human race disciples, and even some dragon race and sea race disciples were already waiting. As for the descendants of the other 3 mainlands, they were also waiting at various places in the Yuanxi Reef. Little White. Xiaohua glanced at the little white dragon beside the black bear. The little white dragon hurriedly flew over and answered, "Big brother." Xiaohua frowned and asked, "7-colored sea god shell?" "Old ancestor she." The little white dragon looked around and whispered, "She doesn't want to enter the Kunlun paradise, she wants to follow behind Big Brother." Xiaohua sneered and glanced at the sea in the distance, saying, "She still hasn't given up and wants to negotiate with this old man. I'm afraid. She wants to take more descendants of the sea race to the 10,000 demon world. Forget it if she doesn't want to go, this old man won't force her. Wait a moment, I'll let the lightning Taoist take her into the Kunlun paradise." "But, Big Brother," the little white dragon said with difficulty, "if this little brother's memory can't be unlocked, this little brother can't help Big Brother." Xiaohua sneered and said through voice transmission, "When Big Brother saw the 7-colored sea god shell that day, he wanted her help to find a passage to another world, but she didn't want to help at all. That day, Big Brother didn't care and casually promised her that if there was a chance to go to the 10,000 demon world, he would take her with him. That day, behind this promise, it was Minghua, not her. However, she didn't value this promise. Although she treated you well and saw you as her descendant, she still used you as a bargaining chip and wanted to bargain with Big Brother. This kind of scheming is what Big Brother hates the most. Moreover, Big Brother later used your mouth to invite her again. He also had the idea of asking her to protect the Fortune Gate's disciples in the 10,000 demon world. But today, it seems that she is too calculative and even a little vengeful. Big Brother is afraid that when we go to the 10,000 demon world, she will make a move on the Fortune Gate's disciples as soon as Big Brother leaves. Rather than that, it is better to let her stay in the 3 mainlands. Chapter 4765. All right. The little white dragon seemed to have some understanding of the seven-colored sea god shell's personality. Hearing Xiaohua's words, he nodded without any hesitation. Then this little brother will listen to big brother. When we reach the 10,000 demon world, even if this little brother's memory is not very clear, I will definitely help big brother find the spatial passage. Since you know the name of the spatial passage, we can ask around when we reach the 10,000 demon world. Xiaohua smiled. You don't have to worry too much. Yes, big brother. The little white dragon nodded with a smile and then flew down. At this time, Feng Wu and Buddha Mithra had returned and were sitting in the Fortune Palace. The news of the Fortune Gates sect master and 10 elders gathering was not spread. Other than Lu Yi and the other disciples did not know about the Fortune Gates sect master. Xiaohua's figure landed in the Fortune Palace, and a group of avatars flew up from the Fortune Throne. He smiled and said, "Should we leave?" Xiaohua smiled. When fellow Taoist lightning returns, we will set off. Not long after, the lightning Taoist held the Kunlun mirror and flew back to the Fortune Palace accompanied by Princess Qingqing. Xiaohua took the Kunlun mirror and activated the light pillar. He looked around and said, "Fellow Taoists, please return to the Kunlun paradise." "Thank you, fellow Taoist." Feng Wu and the others nodded and flew into the Kunlun mirror. In a moment, only Wen Chu, Lightning Taoist, Xiaohua, Princess Qingqing, and Princess Zixia were left in the Fortune Palace. "Qingqing, take care." The Lightning Taoist looked at Princess Qingqing and said, "I will be back soon. You must listen to the Wisdom Palace Master and Princess Zixia." TSK. Princess Qingqing's eyes turned red and she rebuked, "You speak as if I am a child. Come back early." But the Lightning Taoist did not show any affection and his figure flashed into the light pillar of the Kunlun mirror. Xiaohua put away the Kunlun mirror and said to Wen Chu, Princess Zixia, and Qingqing, "From now on, the Fortune Gate is in your hands. Fellow Taoist, rest assured." Wen Chu smiled. "With this king here, it is as if you are here. Darling Xiao, be careful. Go quickly and come back quickly." Princess Zixia lightly bit her lips and gave a simple instruction. Princess Qingqing said indifferently, "Don't worry, sect master. I'm still waiting for Lei Ting to marry me. Who would dare to act rashly?" "Hee, then please sit on the thrones of creation." Xiaohua raised his hand and shook it. A bolt of lightning descended, and the 10 thrones of creation rapidly shrank into 3. Princess Zixia shook her head and said, "I am not qualified to sit on the throne of creation. Xiaolang, please take back your order." "Don't worry." Princess Qingqing yelled in a sarcastic tone, "I've already promised Lei Ting that I won't interfere in the Fortune Gate's internal affairs unless the Scholar Palace Master wants me to. Go ahead and take a seat." Princess Zixia didn't answer. Instead, she looked at Xiaohua and shook her head. "All right." Xiaohua looked at Wen Chu and said, "Then I'll have to trouble fellow Immortal to sit high above." No problem." Wen Chu laughed and sat on the throne. The thrones of creation flickered and turned into one. As Wen Chu pointed his finger, the Fortune Dao Palace above disappeared, revealing the West Sea's high sky and white clouds. Then, Wen Chu, Xiaohua, Princess Qingqing, and Princess Zixia landed above the Origin Dusk Reef. "Disciples." Xiaohua looked at the black mass of heads and fervent gazes on the ground. He raised his hand and said, "This old man will be leaving. I'll leave the West Sea and Fortune Gate to you. Farewell, Elder Sect Master." The disciples bowed and said, "We wish Elder Sect Master success." Good. Xiaohua laughed loudly. His figure flickered and he soared into the sky. "I'll take your blessings. This old man will be back soon." Xiaohua turned into a thunderbolt and soared into the sky. With a wave of his hands, a crack appeared in the void. Xiaohua's tall and thin figure turned back to look. His gaze not only fell on Princess Zixia, but also fell on Lu Yi and the other disciples. His gaze even fell on the boundless waves of the West Sea. Then, with a flicker, he disappeared into the void. Jinren Shao. Just as Xiaohua entered the void, several faint ripples appeared in the sky, and a black and white halo gushed out like a fountain. The figure of the seven-colored sea god shell flew out of the light and shadow, and hurriedly shouted, "Zhenren Xiao, please wait." Xiaohua's figure that had already disappeared reappeared. He looked at the seven-colored sea god seashell indifferently and asked, "What else do you want?" The seven-colored sea god seashell was a little embarrassed. She didn't expect Xiaohua to ignore her hint and leave as soon as the 10 days were up. At this time, she opened her mouth but didn't know what to say. "If you don't have anything, don't waste my time." Xiaohua's body surged with strange fluctuations again. He said impatiently, "I'm in a hurry to go to the 10,000 demon realm." "Daoist Xiao." The seven-colored sea god seashell hurriedly said, "I can't go to the 10,000 demon realm with you?" Xiaohua replied. "Daoist Xiao." The seven-colored sea god seashell smiled bitterly. "It's not that I want to hide the fact that little white dragon's seal is not completely broken. It's just that those seals were specially sealed by Minghua. I'm not completely sure." "No need to say more." Xiaohua interrupted the seven-colored sea god seashell and laughed. "It's not important. I don't have much time now. I can try now." The seven-colored sea god seashell hurriedly gave in. "Maybe I can break Little White's final seal. I only need to delay Daoist Xiao for 3 days." It would be a lie to say that Xiaohua wasn't worried about Little White Dragon's seal. Seeing that the seven-colored sea god seashell agreed to help Little White Dragon break the seal, Xiaohua couldn't help but hesitate. "I'm not asking to go to the 10,000 demon realm with you." The seven-colored sea god seashell took advantage of the situation and said, "I only ask that Daoist Xiao can bring Bei Ming's original body back to the 10,000 demon realm. Because Bei Ming's original body hasn't shown any signs of awakening or growth for so many years, he must have left a clone in the 10,000 demon realm. Only by merging the original body with the clone can Bei Ming wake up." Xiaohua hesitated. He could ignore the seven-colored sea god seashell, but he couldn't ignore Minghua. After all, Minghua was the founder of Shanghuaming sect, and Bei Ming might be the person Xianwan was looking for. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua nodded and said, "Okay, I'll give you 3 more days." "Thank you, Daoist Xiao." The seven-colored sea god seashell was overjoyed and said, "Please come with me." With that, the seven-colored sea god seashell turned into a black and white rainbow bridge and rushed to a place in the West Sea. Xiaohua looked back at Wenchu, who was sitting high on the throne of creation, and Princess Qingqing and Princess Zixia on both sides of the throne. He smiled and waved his hand, and also turned into a rainbow and left. Chapter 4766. 3 days later, in the West Ocean, Xiaohua soared into the sky again. Behind him, the seven-colored seashell turned into a human form and waved goodbye with a helpless face. The seven-colored seashell's plan was very good. She also knew that Xiaohua was soft-hearted. As long as she said more gentle words, Xiaohua might agree to her conditions and take her to the 10,000 demon realm. Xiaohua naturally fell into the seven-colored seashell's plan and easily agreed to the seven-colored seashell's conditions. However, when the seven-colored seashell completely broke the seal on the little white dragon, it meant that the seal was gone and the memory would slowly recover. Only then did Xiaohua begin to fulfill his promise. However, when Xiaohua took out the Kunlun mirror and first collected the offspring of the seven-colored seashell, he suddenly found that no matter how Xiaohua activated the Kunlun mirror, he could not take her into the space. The seven-colored seashell was angry at first, thinking that Xiaohua was going back on his words. However, after Xiaohua thought carefully and told her his guess, she understood. Back in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, the rainbow sea god seashell had used her innate ability, the Great Rainbow Halo Shell World, to trap Xiaohua. Inside the Great Rainbow Halo Shell World, Xiaohua couldn't be sensed by the Kunlun Immortal Realm, let alone the Kunlun Immortal Realm. Today, the rainbow sea god seashell with the Great Rainbow Halo Shell World naturally couldn't sense Xiaohua. After knowing the reason, the seven-colored seashell was speechless. Unless she gave up her special ability, she could not enter the Kunlun Wonderland at all. However, in a remote area, the rainbow sea god shell had been stripped of its sea god bloodline by the divine punishment. Her Great Rainbow Halo Shell World could no longer be used. Her innate god art, was no longer an innate god art. The seven-colored sea god shell couldn't leave the three continents and go to the 10,000 demon realm for this innate ability that couldn't be used at all. It must be said that the heavens played a big joke on the seven-colored sea god shell. The seven-colored seashell had no choice but to entrust the offspring that had been taken into the space to Xiaohua, and then give the infant Bei Ming to Xiaohua before sending Xiaohua out of the West Ocean. Senior, don't worry. Xiaohua stopped in the air and smiled. As soon as I reach the 10,000 demon realm, I will find the place where Bei Ming used to live according to the little white dragon's memory and send him to find his clone. Moreover, I will find a suitable place for your offspring and the offspring of the little white dragon to survive in the 10,000 demon realm. The seven-colored sea god shell thought for a moment and said, the little white dragon's seal has been broken, but I'm not sure when it will recover. Moreover, no one knows the current situation of Bei Ming's clone. You must ensure Bei Ming's safety first. Senior, I don't have much time. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, Junior will do his best to follow Senior's instructions, but if there isn't enough time, Junior can only guarantee to bring back Bei Ming's infant body in one piece. Xiaohua's the seashell. Xiaohua's seashell. Farewell. Xiaohua cupped his hands and turned into a rainbow as he flew towards the West Ocean Dragon Palace. However, a faint smile appeared on Xiaohua's face after the seven-colored sea god shellfish flew far away. If it weren't for the fact that he was worried that the seven-colored sea god shellfish would harm the fortune gate on the Yuanxi Reef Plain, Xiaohua would have ignored the seven-colored sea god shellfish that had appeared at the last moment. But even if Xiaohua agreed, how could he let the seven-colored seashell stay in the 10,000 demon realm with Li Xiang and the other fortune gate disciples? Xiaohua flew for a while, and his body began to flicker with lightning and inexplicable fluctuations. Then, two golden hands filled with lightning pulled at the void, and a void passage appeared. Xiaohua flashed into it, and when he came out, he was already in the 1,000 demons' sacred realm, the demon realm filled with devil qi. The mysterious origin space's space escape technique is really amazing. Xiaohua looked around and said in admiration, moreover, the space escape technique's understanding of space law is unique, which is not available in the three continents Dao sects. Fellow Taoist Huang Tong's cultivation. I can't compare. Just as Xiaohua's voice fell, Huang Tong flew out from Xiaohua's space and laughed. Fellow Taoist Xiao is too humble. Although I have been comprehending space law ever since I entered the mysterious origin space and cultivated the space escape technique, my understanding of space law is far inferior to yours. In particular, your sense of direction in the void is really unparalleled. Even in the mysterious origin space where there are countless space domain experts, no one can compare to you. With this talent, you also know the pure escape magics of 5 elements, the rare escape magics of wind and thunder. Oh, and the escape magics of light, which I have never heard of before. Only when all these magics are put together can you accurately cross countless space and reach this place. Fellow Taoist Xiao, with your current space escape technique, even in the mysterious origin space, you are now the #1 space expert. No one can compare to you. Xiaohua urged his body and flew towards the depths of the demon realm. He laughed and said, I's other abilities may be worse, but when it comes to escape techniques, it's still however, before Xiaohua could finish his words, he suddenly stopped. His expression changed greatly as he looked at Huang Tong in surprise. Then he looked at Huang Tong again. Just as Xiaohua's expression changed, he was also shocked. He almost subconsciously shouted, Quick, fellow Taoist Xiao, there is a change in space. Damn it! Xiaohua cursed. His body was instantly filled with lightning. Huang Tong's body swayed and stopped again. Her phoenix eyes were like lightning as she looked at the void in the distance and smiled bitterly. Xiaohua, according to our previous discussion, I need to roughly determine the direction of the 10,000 demon realm first, then we can go together. Now that there is a change, there is not much time to confirm. Although after you transform, I can control your body, but in the void, I can't move freely. It is better for you to control. Everything is up to you now. While speaking, Xiaohua's body had already begun to fade. The lightning gradually turned into lightning and covered the surrounding void. Xiaohua nodded and said, "Fellow Taoist, don't worry. You are me and I am you. We have already practiced in the Zhaohua Palace before, so there should be no problem." "Fellow Taoist, don't be careless." Huang Tong's body swayed and fell into the lightning that had already faded. She shouted, "The 10,000 demon realm and the 3 continents are worlds. The laws of heaven and earth between the worlds are completely different from the previous practice in the void." Huang Tong entered Xiaohua's body. Woo! A gust of wind mixed with the roar of thunder was born in the air. A phoenix cry that shook the surroundings rang out. Xiaohua had already transformed into the shape of a phoenix, stretching out his neck and crying out. Chapter 4767. Immediately after, Xiaohua's phoenix claws flashing with lightning and golden light grabbed at the void, and a crack appeared in the void. Xiaohua's wings flashed, and he fell into the previously immature realm. Now, the realm was completely different from before. Where Xiaohua's figure landed, tens of millions of space vortexes had already appeared. These space vortexes were either big or small, and in the center of each vortex, there was a black and white light spot. The space vortexes expanded rapidly, pulling the entire realm into the light spot. The entire space was filled with distorted light and chaotic fluctuations. A destructive aura overflowed the entire space. Looking at the previously seemingly endless edge of the realm, now more than half of it had already transformed. Layers of fluctuations were surging towards the center of the realm like a tide. Every time there was a fluctuation, there would be many vortexes. What was special was that after the tide, there was a powerful and vast dark color. This color was the realm's power that Huang Tong mentioned. Now, the realm's power was chaotic, and it surrounded the entire realm that Xiaohua's divine sense swept over and immediately understood that this realm was not fully mature. Under the tearing of the 3 continents' realms, it was already extremely unstable. That day, in order to ambush Xiaohua, the nether demon dragon spider had already used its spatial ability between this realm and the 3 continents. This spatial ability inevitably allowed the spatial laws of the 3 continents to seep into this realm. The spatial laws of the 3 continents disturbed the spatial laws of this realm, and then destroyed the spatial structure of this realm. Later, when Xiaohua and the others fought here, the spatial structure was damaged again. The most fatal thing was naturally the suppression of the great array of the 9 regions, which completely destroyed the spatial laws of this realm, causing the collapse and annihilation of this realm. That day, when Xiaohua and Huang Tong came to observe, because the collapse had just occurred, it only evolved at the edge and did not affect the entire realm. Many places had even begun to heal by themselves. When the collapse began to slowly occur, the destruction of the realm gradually began to accelerate. Xiaohua rushed over now. If he was a day and a half later, he was afraid that he would not even be able to find this springboard to the 10,000 demon realm. Xiaohua did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly flapped his wings, and thousands of thunderbolts were born from his wings. They fell on the collapsed realm, and immediately destroyed the vortexes within 100 miles. At the same time, the warped shadows and chaotic fluctuations were instantly swept away, and a copious, vast, upright, and dignified will of lightning enveloped the surroundings. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Xiaohua's pair of wings flapped again. This time, wave after wave of strange runes gushed out like a tide. These runes were actually like little tadpoles, falling into the lightning brush and instantly disappearing without a trace. However, there were also some tadpoles that turned into light and shadow and gradually began to distort. At the same time, a thick, pitch-black color gushed out from the surrounding lightning. The power of the realm had begun to attack the power of lightning. Quick! Inside Xiaohua's body, Huang Tong hurriedly urged. Xiaohua flapped his wings again, and runes poured into the void like a river. Half a meal's worth of cultivation technique, Xiaohua actually began to tremble. The space within 100 miles around him also began to shrink rapidly, and vortexes began to appear one after another. Once again, Xiaohua let out a phoenix cry. His sharp claws appeared out of thin air, flashing with dazzling lightning. Within this lightning, there was a dazzling brilliance. The brilliance flashed rapidly with an indescribable rhythm. Pooh! The lightning claws pierced deeply into the place where the runes were pouring in. Ka-ka-ka! The void was torn apart, and layers of destructive realm aura gushed out from the cracks. Xiaohua's divine sense swept out, and he became anxious again. This was because within the cracks in the void, there were no gorgeous colors like before. There were only layers of pitch-black shadows. An unparalleled force emerged from the shadows and rushed towards the spatial cracks where Xiaohua was located. Damn it! Xiaohua cursed and hurriedly asked in his heart, "Fellow Huang Tong, what should we do?" Xiaohua. Huang Tong's voice was also filled with bitterness. She helplessly replied, "This is the result of not being able to find the realm dimension. Without the realm dimension, the space escape technique cannot be used at all." Is there nothing we can do? Xiaohua was really unwilling. After preparing for so long, how could it end here? The power of the collapse of the realm is too great. Huang Tong replied, "The space laws of this realm have already been destroyed. Within the chaotic space laws, I don't have any good ideas. Unless we can escape from the space laws. But now that we are in this realm, how can we escape from the space laws?" Hearing this, Xiaohua's heart moved and he proudly said, Others may not be able to do it, but I can definitely do it." After speaking, Xiaohua's figure once again flashed with lightning. His wings flapped, and he rushed into the spatial cracks. Huang Tong was shocked and said, "Without the realm dimension, entering the void is death." Unfortunately, before Huang Tong finished speaking, his voice was slowly stretched even in Xiaohua's heart. Xiaohua urged his spiritual power to use the thunder escape technique. A series of shadows appeared on the spot, dragging their distorted bodies into the spatial cracks. The pitch-black shadows were like moths to a flame. The strange thing was that when the thunder escape technique reached its limit, circles of light spots appeared around Xiaohua. Although these light spots were pitch-black, in Xiaohua's eyes, they were different shades of black. It was like the sky after a strong wind, covered with clouds. Moreover, within these light spots, layers of different fluctuations rushed out from different light spots. Of course, at this time, there were many gaps between the fluctuations. Seeing that there were gaps, Xiaohua was overjoyed. He opened his mouth again, and one by one, green seal characters rushed out. The obscure screams of gods and ghosts seemed to rush out from the abyss. The green seal characters actually gave birth to a very faint passage in the space laws. Wisps of black and white brilliance rushed out from the surroundings and fell on the outline of the passage. Xiaohua's body, which had already reached its limit, stepped on the passage. His eyes lit up again, but he saw strands of gorgeous colors from the other side of the passage. These colors fell into Xiaohua's eyes and turned into scenes. It could be a huge mountain range, or a deep forest, or a flying spirit clan. Wasn't it the scene of the 10,000 demon realm? Xiaohua's body trembled slightly, clearly due to excitement. He took a deep breath. Another hiss sounded. Unfortunately, this hiss didn't make any sound. Then, Xiaohua's claws clawed at the passageway. Swoosh! A jagged crack instantly rushed from one end of the passageway to the other. At the same time, an incomparably enormous force emerged from the left side of the light spot. As the light spot collapsed, all the light shadows retreated towards the other end of the passageway. Although Xiaohua's figure didn't move, it also seemed to be retreating at extreme speed. Not good. Xiaohua was shocked. He knew that if he withdrew from the thunder escape technique, the realm dimension of the 10,000 demon realm would disappear. Chapter 4768. Kakaka. Xiaohua didn't hesitate to use his space escape technique again. Layer upon layer of runes gushed out once more, and wherever the lightning passed, the space cracked once more. Xiaohua's entire body felt as if it was being suppressed by a huge mountain range. Even moving half an inch took a great deal of effort. Another unyielding cry rang out. This time, as the sound spread out, the nearby space was shaken to the point of shattering. As Xiaohua's wings flashed with difficulty, he charged into the crack in space that was on the verge of collapse. Xiaohua's figure fell into the crack, and the strange scene in the crack reappeared. It was completely different from the space escape technique he used in the realm before. A distorted and abnormal passage appeared in front of Xiaohua. On the four walls of this passage, signs of annihilation intertwined with scenes of the 10,000 demon realm. There were even scenes of the mountains and rivers of the three continents. When these scenes fell on the passage, the four walls rippled like water waves. Whoosh whoosh. Xiaohua's figure flashed like a stream of light in the passage. The light and darkness intertwined and instantly covered thousands of miles. Behind him, the sounds of collapsing followed. The thick pitch-black shadow rushed over like a tsunami. After a while, the four walls of the passage became thinner and the five colors became more intense. However, an aura more majestic than the collapse force behind him gradually approached. Xiaohua understood that this was the space barrier of the 10,000 demon realm. When he looked at the passageway again, he saw that it was becoming increasingly distorted. Moreover, the passageway was of varying sizes. Even the runes on the walls of the passageway earlier were emitting cryptic fluctuations, ingeniously blocking the mountain-like vastness of the passageway. Xiaohua's heart calmed down slightly, but it was only for a moment. Boom boom boom. The five colors in the distance were quickly annihilated, and the pitch-black color appeared once again. It quickly swallowed all the colors and rushed toward Xiaohua. The originally thin passage instantly collapsed, and only the outline of the passage was left, like the branches of a big tree swaying in the berserk power of the boundary. Damn it! Xiaohua was shocked. His figure was almost blown to a halt by the incoming power of the realm. Xiaohua cursed inwardly and suddenly turned his head around. Not far from him, another kind of realm power was chasing after him even more rapidly than before. Moreover, this realm power also carried a strong sense of destruction. Comparing the two realm forces, Xiaohua naturally made a choice. He flapped his wings crazily. The strange runes also rushed out crazily. A strange force formed in the space, breaking open a gap in the realm force. Xiaohua's figure rushed into the gap. Boom! Xiaohua's figure fell into the gap. The two forces of the boundary collided with each other, like two huge waves in the sea. Roar, destruction, darkness, light. In an instant, death and rebirth coexisted. Everything burst forth. Xiaohua only felt his body tighten. Two unparalleled forces hit his body at the same time. No matter how much he urged his transcendence energy, he wanted to block this force. However, all of his defenses collapsed and shattered under the power of this realm. A wave of unstoppable dizziness hit him. Xiaohua immediately sank into complete darkness. Fortunately, although Xiaohua lost his will, the outline of the passage still existed. Xiaohua's figure was backtracked by the realm force and gradually drifted into the realm barrier of the 10,000 demon realm that after an unknown amount of time, Xiaohua finally woke up. Hum 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 hum. A series of earth-shattering sounds that sounded like the roar of a mountain and the roar of a tsunami still reverberated in his mind and ears. Xiaohua opened his eyes. He couldn't see the scene in front of him at all. An indescribable fainting made everything in his eyes shake. There was even a kind of nausea that he hadn't experienced for a long time crazily rolling in his body. Xiaohua wanted to release his spiritual sense, but it was also unstable. Moreover, as soon as it rushed out of his body, Xiaohua felt his body was spinning and couldn't stop at all. Damn it! Xiaohua knew that he didn't have much time. Burning with anxiety, he hurriedly wanted to urge his spiritual essence. However, as soon as he urged his spiritual essence, Xiaohua felt that something was wrong. Because his spiritual essence was also spinning, he couldn't control it at all. Helplessly, Xiaohua closed his eyes and withdrew his spiritual essence. Xiaohua had just closed his eyes when bursts of pain came from all over his body. Xiaohua couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. After all, his physical body had been tempered to a terrifying degree and he hadn't been injured for many years. The realm force. Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh. This is the power of heaven and earth. If it wasn't for this Xiao's physical body being comparable to the great saint of the demon clan, I'm afraid I would have fallen outside the realm today. Thinking of this, Xiaohua became anxious again because he couldn't tell where he was now. Xiaohua wanted to think about what had just happened, but his mind was spinning rapidly, making it impossible for him to calm down and think. In a moment, Xiaohua gave up. After a full 3 days, the nausea in Xiaohua's chest gradually disappeared, and the churning in his mind gradually calmed down. Although his divine sense still didn't dare to leave his body, Xiaohua still opened his eyes. Before Xiaohua could clearly see the scene around him, a clear cry resounded above his head. A fierce force was born from several hundred meters away, and it attacked towards the space between Xiaohua's eyebrows. Although Xiaohua couldn't see anything, he knew clearly in his heart that he didn't know what had happened. He coldly snorted and didn't open his eyes. When the force came closer, he immediately clenched his fist and punched towards the sky. Xiaohua couldn't help but grimace as the pain in his body greatly reduced the force of his fist. However, even so, after a boom, sound of an explosion, JJ, was heard, followed by a series of muffled sounds of flesh being torn apart. Finally, with a pew sound, it was as if a heavy object had fallen to the ground, causing a series of splashing sounds. And this place is probably not the void. Hearing these movements, Xiaohua thought to himself. His heart settled, and then he slowly opened his eyes. The first thing that entered Xiaohua's eyes was a gloomy sky. The sun was shining with boundless heat, and it was hanging there. Around the sun, there were thick dark clouds covering the sky, as if a storm was coming. Seeing the familiar sky, Xiaohua's heart couldn't help but thump, thinking that this was bad. When he hurriedly propped up his upper body with difficulty and looked around, his heart instantly turned cold. Chapter 4769. It was a quagmire, and Xiaohua was lying on the edge of the quagmire. A huge black and white vulture was still struggling in the center of the quagmire. The turbid muddy water and the vulture's flesh and blood splashed in all directions. Looking around the quagmire, there were tall vines and shrubs. The tangled branches and lush leaves covered the nearby hills. Further away from the hills was an ancient forest. The ancient forest looked very deep, and some whirlwinds blew out from the forest, lifting layers of fallen leaves. Damn it, is this still the Thousand Demons' sacred realm? Xiaohua looked at this scene and immediately thought of some of the places he encountered when he transformed into the python dragon. He couldn't help but curse. Xiaohua unwillingly released his divine sense again. Who knew that as soon as he released his divine sense, his mind would become dizzy again. The upper body that had just propped up fell into the quagmire again. Fellow Taoists? Xiaohua urged his mind to enter the space, but at this time, the space seemed to be spinning. Xiaohua's mind couldn't find the space no matter what. After trying a few times, Xiaohua helplessly gave up. This was the result of the collision between the two realms. As long as he ignored it, he would probably slowly recover. After closing his eyes for a long time, Xiaohua opened his eyes and looked at his body that was half under the quagmire and half above the quagmire. At this time, on Xiaohua's body, it could be said that there was no unscathe. Pieces of scars were exposed, revealing the traces of internal tears. Although these traces were already slowly healing, there were still some faint golden threads appearing between the tears, as if they were preventing the wounds from healing. Xiaohua couldn't use his magic power, so he naturally couldn't speed up the healing. After his gaze swept over, he just wanted to look elsewhere. However, when his gaze fell on a shrub that was at least 1,000 feet in size, he was suddenly shocked and once again looked at his body. How is this possible? Xiaohua saw his body clearly and couldn't help but tremble in his heart. He muttered to himself, I didn't use my Transcendence golden body at all, how could my golden body be revealed? Moreover, I remember that I used my Phoenix celestial body before. Even if I can't restore my human body, it has to be the Phoenix celestial body. Just as Xiaohua was thinking about this, a gust of wind blew by, and then a golden light descended from the sky like sprinkles, and it enveloped the entire pool. Xiaohua was taken aback and unconsciously looked up. When he saw everything in front of him, he shouted in ecstasy, sure enough, this is the 10,000 demon realm. The 3 continents are saved. Xiaohua looked up and saw a golden sun that was only 30% the size of the previous sun appear from the dense clouds. A golden pillar of light sprinkled down on the earth. Wasn't he the Hao Yang that little white dragon mentioned? The golden light of the vast sun landed on Xiaohua's body, and Xiaohua felt a burst of coolness entering his body. The golden threads on the wound of the golden body flowed rapidly, and the wound that couldn't heal for a long time actually sped up. Realm of demons. Sure enough, it's somewhat interesting. Xiaohua's heart moved, as if he had understood something. After half a day, when the clouds once again covered the sun, most of the injuries on Xiao Huajin's body had healed. The clouds covered most of the sky, and even the sun was hidden. Gusts of wind fell from the sky, and in a moment, bean-sized raindrops fell with a pitter-patter. Xiao Hua didn't want to move, but when he saw the filth of the quagmire gradually rising and drowning him, he could only slowly stand up. This standing still didn't matter, but the whole world spun again. Xiao Hua's several hundred feet tall golden body staggered a few steps, and with a put-ong sound, he half knelt in the quagmire. He lowered his head to look at the quagmire, and a painful expression appeared on his face. In a moment, the raindrops had already turned into lines and fell down, and the entire pool was covered with fist-sized splashes. Looking at the vulture that attacked Xiaohua just now, it had already stopped struggling, and fell dead in the pool, gradually submerged by the water. Seeing the water of the pool gradually reach his legs, Xiaohua once again took a breath, straightened up, and staggered towards the edge of the pool. Unfortunately, before he could get close to the shore, another beast roar sounded. From the mud of the pool, a grayish-black monster of 1,000 feet in size pounced out. That monster rushed out of the pool, and its long beastly mouth bit towards Xiaohua's waist. In the rain-soaked monster's mouth, there were fangs several feet in size, and they clearly revealed a dark green light. Damn it! At this moment, Xiaohua was very weak, and he couldn't use any of his divine abilities. Moreover, when he waved his fist, the monster in his eyes actually showed signs of twisting and spinning, and his attack actually missed. The monster's mouth was about to bite Xiaohua's waist. Xiaohua didn't know the monster's strength at this moment, so how could he dare to let it succeed? He hurriedly dodged, wanting to dodge, but unfortunately, this dodge was actually in the wrong direction. His figure once again rushed towards the monster, and it was as if Xiaohua himself was rushing over. But fortunately, without waiting for the monster's huge teeth to descend, Xiaohua's legs stomped, and with a purring sound, he kicked the monster's neck. That monster was immediately kicked flying, its 3,000 feet long body tumbled in midair, and the pool water and mud splashed high up into the air. Just as the monster flipped over a few times, boom! An explosive sound rang out, and the monster's 3,000-meter-long monster body exploded out of thin air. Xiaohua's figure was unstable, and he couldn't control his strength. With this kick, just like how he dealt with Vulture earlier, the monster was killed in one blow. Seeing countless pieces of flesh and broken bones scattered around the quagmire, Xiaohua took a deep breath, and with ethereal steps, he prepared to rush out of the quagmire. However, even such a small quagmire was actually filled with danger. Xiaohua had only taken a few steps into the air when a gust of wind howled. In the distant quagmire that had previously soared into the sky, a huge python that was several hundred feet long rushed out again. The sinister python head spat out its scarlet tongue and pounced towards the scattered flesh and blood in the air. The long python tail even streaked across the air and whipped towards Xiaohua's back. At the same time, swish swish swish. With a series of sounds, not only strange and ugly beast heads poked out of the quagmire, but there were also strange beasts in the mud around the quagmire, either long or square. Apparently, they were attracted by the smell of blood. Even the vines that were originally swaying in the wind suddenly expanded in the wind, pouncing towards the broken bones scattered below him. The world in Xiaohua's eyes was still spinning. After his punch hit empty air, the huge python's tail precisely hit Xiaohua's back. Xiaohua's golden body slightly swayed, and he already had an idea in his heart. However, seeing so many beasts in the spinning world, he couldn't help but curse inwardly, damn it. Chapter 4770. Then, Xiaohua retracted some of his strength, raised his hand, and grabbed the tail of the giant python. Poof! His 5 fingers pierced deeply into the python's body, and blood splattered everywhere. Hiss hiss. The giant python was clearly in pain. It frantically twisted and turned, wanting to break free. Xiao Hua exerted strength with one arm. Ooh! The python's body swayed outside the quagmire. Pa pa pa! It sent the monsters that had just poked their heads out flying. Even the torrential rain was disrupted. The rain poured down, and there was no light or shadow in the whole world. There was only darkness and gloomy water light. Xiao Hua couldn't activate the golden light to protect his body. The rain poured down on him, completely drenching his entire body. Since he could not see the situation around him, Xiao Hua simply closed his eyes and used the giant python as a weapon, swinging it as he walked towards the edge of the quagmire. The giant python was still struggling desperately at first, but after a while, it became obedient, and no matter how Xiao Hua swung it, it did not move. Obviously, it was conquered by Xiao Hua's unparalleled strength. After walking for nearly half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua gradually felt that something was wrong, because he was originally at the edge of the quagmire and was about 1,000 feet away from the ground. If the direction was right, he would have stepped on solid ground at this time. This Xiao's luck can't be that bad, right? Xiao Hua shook his head, as if to shake off the turbulent sea in his mind, and when he narrowed his eyes slightly, he could not help but sigh. He really went in the wrong direction, and in just half a cup of tea's time, he had walked a lot deeper into the quagmire. Sigh. Xiao Hua sighed slightly and looked at the sloping shore. Just as he was about to take another step, he suddenly froze again, because the noise in the rain just now had completely disappeared, and the whole world was filled with the sound of hua hua. Xiao Hua smiled and squinted his eyes to look at the swaying quagmire on the left. Sure enough, after the monsters that suddenly appeared swallowed the scattered flesh and blood, they did not leave, but quietly looked at him, as if waiting for the best time to attack. Damn it, this Xiao is a human Mahayana stage, although I don't know the situation of the peak strength of the 10,000 demon realm. No matter what, this Xiao is still a sun ranker. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He cursed in his heart. Now, a bunch of low-class monsters are coveting it. This is what they mean by, a dragon in shallow water will be toyed with by shrimps, and a tiger will be bullied by dogs when it goes down to the plains. Oh, you are much stronger than shrimps, but in this Xiao's eyes, what difference is there between you and shrimps? As he thought about it, Xiao Hua decided not to bother with the monsters who chose the right moment to attack. He dragged the python with him and managed to get his bearings before he staggered to the shore. Seemingly shaken by Xiao Hua's calmness, none of the monsters dared to act rashly. Seeing Xiao Hua's golden body slowly approaching the shore, all of the monsters suddenly pounced over, even denser than the rain falling from the sky. Sigh. Xiao Hua was somewhat helpless. He already understood that these were merely demon beasts. He reckoned that they couldn't even get into the ranks of middle or small spirits. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so lacking in intelligence. Since the demon beasts weren't afraid of death, Xiao Hua could only try his hand at it. The pitiful python was once again waved about, and like a soft whip, it streaked through the air, sending the smaller demon beasts flying. A moment later, a low sound rang out. Xiao Hua's hand tightened, and a huge force came from the python's body. Xiao Hua frowned and looked over again. He saw a thick vine actually extend from the ground, firmly hooking onto the python's body. Ha! Xiao Hua laughed. He used his strength to pull, and his entire body flew up. He landed at the edge of the quagmire and grabbed onto the vine. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The vine fell into Xiao Hua's hand, and unexpectedly had a slippery feeling. It twisted and turned, wanting to break free from Xiao Hua's hand. In fact, there were even hundreds of vines stretching out from the ground, like tentacles wanting to bind Xiao Hua. Rise! Xiao Hua growled. His arms exerted strength, and his body flew up from the quagmire once again, landing on the shore. At the same time, Xiao Hua shook his hand. The vines swayed, turning into a shadow, and sent the falling vines flying. Xiao Hua's body landed. The ground was full of mud, and it wasn't much better than the quagmire. However, Xiao Hua was still a human, and having his feet on the ground made him feel slightly more stable. However, Xiao Hua still thought too much. Without waiting for his body to stabilize, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Indescribable vines and strange demon beasts all rushed out from the ground, between the mountain rocks, and even from the cracks in the rocks. They pounced on Xiaohua's golden body. Every demon beast's mouth was filled with flashing sharp teeth, and every vine had sharp thorns. Is there an end to this? Previously, Xiaohua didn't kill indiscriminately except for the vulture and the monster because he didn't have enough strength. Now that he saw himself on the shore, there were still so many vines and monsters that didn't know the difference between life and death. If it was a normal situation, he could release his power and escape as much as he could. However, right now, he couldn't use any of his divine abilities and could only tangle with these little things here. His heart was also burning with anger. Roar! Xiaohua roared. First, his hands clenched and he grasped the vine in his hand. A deep gully was opened in the ground, and he pulled out a vine that was at least 10,000 feet long from the ground. Then he grabbed the vine with both hands and pulled it to both sides. The rattan was torn apart, and a light green and bloody liquid splashed out. Xiaohua's hand could even feel the rattan twitching due to the pain. Xiaohua coldly snorted. With a wave of his hand, he threw away the 2 pieces of rattan. Then he took a few steps forward and kicked away a few roaring monsters that pounced at him. With a grab of his hand, he grabbed the other rattan that was whipping his waist. Boom! Another loud sound rang out, and this vine was lifted up again. But in just a moment, dozens of vines were lifted up by Xiaohua. The entire ground was also crisscrossed with ravines, and rainwater poured in like a river. While chopping the vines, Xiaohua's legs weren't idle. He used ethereal steps and kicked away many monsters. Looking at Xiaohua's awe-inspiring appearance, it was like punching a tiger in the south and kicking a flood dragon in the north. However, the more Xiaohua fought, the heavier his heart became. It wasn't that there were no monsters in the 3 continents. When Xiaohua transformed into a python and followed Shui Mingzi and the others to Baiqingyu, he had crossed a part of the 1,000 Demons' sacred realm. Back then, even those as strong as Shui Mingzi and the other Taoist cultivators would have fallen under the mouths of the monsters in the 1,000 Demons' sacred realm if they didn't have Xiaohua's help. And the monsters here were far more powerful than the monsters in the 1,000 Demons' sacred realm. Chapter 4771. With such monsters. No, with such spiritual creatures everywhere, whether it's my human race or the demon race, I'm afraid it won't be easy for us to survive. Xiaohua thought as he pulled up a vine from the ground and made it into a whip. Huff huff. He waved the vine, then reduced his strength and tangled it with the spiritual vines and other spiritual creatures. In the time it took to eat a meal, under the mighty Xiaohua's fists and feet, the area within a radius of several li had been cleared. Broken vines twisted on the ground like snake tails, and spiritual creatures that looked like round balls rolled on the ground, allowing the rain to wash them away. At this time, the dizziness in Xiaohua's eyes did not improve in the slightest. There's really no meaning in fighting with you little things. Xiaohua's eyes narrowed as he endured the shaking light in front of him. He threw away the vine in his hand and faintly muttered to himself. At this time, he had already roughly grasped the strength of these spiritual creatures. There were not as many spiritual creatures in the quagmire as on the shore. Their strength was roughly 2nd grade essence energy, and the vines on the shore were similar to the spiritual creatures in the quagmire. As for those spiritual creatures that drilled out from the cracks in the rocks and the ground, they were only 1st grade essence energy. Of course, these spiritual creatures were only small things in Xiaohua's eyes, but to be honest, they were all 9th level essence energy, and even foundation building cultivator's strength. If placed in the Dawn Rain continent, they would be amazing existences. Compared to the danger here, the Dawn Rain continent's Ink Shadow Black Forest and Flame Forest Swamp could be considered carefree places. Xiaohua threw away the vine, then immediately clenched his fist and vigorously punched the ground. With a loud sound, the entire earth trembled. A crack that was more than 10 zhang long appeared on the ground and rapidly spread towards the mountain peak and the quagmire. Shwa! The crack spread to the quagmire, and some of the muddy water immediately poured down. Dozens of spiritual creatures that looked like fish monsters in the muddy water scrambled to escape, all of them frightened by the power of Xiaohua's punch. At the same time, when the cracks stopped on the mountain peak, several ancient trees fell, and the swaying vines weakly drooped down. For a moment, like before, the quagmire's surroundings were peaceful again. Xiaohua coldly snorted, and shouted in the language of the 10,000 demon realm, "Calm down. I'm just resting here for a while. If you disturb me again, don't blame me for being impolite." While speaking, Xiaohua didn't care if the nearby Fays understood. His golden body sat cross-legged on the ground and prepared to meditate. After all, his 5 senses weren't sensitive, and it wasn't convenient for him to go anywhere. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was still disappointed. Just as he sat down, boom boom boom. A series of low rumbling sounds came from afar. Moreover, the entire earth was slightly trembling. A kind of faint sound like a tsunami came from the distant night rain. Xiaohua was naturally unable to release his spiritual sense, but as a Grand Ascension Stage Taoist, he still possessed keen senses, and his brows furrowed slightly as he cast his gaze toward the source of the voice. In the night, the rain danced wantonly. The undulating mountain ridge in the darkness was like an ancient beast desperately struggling to break free from the shackles of the earth. The ancient forest swayed left and right like a graceful woman. Patches of multicolored light inexplicably appeared in the pitch-black night, rapidly assaulting Xiaohua's vision. Wave after wave of water ripples enveloped the surrounding heaven and earth, once again forming an enormous passageway. Xiaohua shook his head, and the light projection before his eyes instantly disappeared. However, as soon as the light projection disappeared, a wave of dizziness and nausea welled up in Xiaohua's heart. Xiaohua sighed and remained silent as he observed the situation. After the time it took to finish a cup of tea, the sound of footsteps rang out. The earth tremored, and the forest collapsed. Several black shadows over 10,000 feet in size emerged from the rain in the distance. Oh, so it's a mountain spirit. Xiaohua could just barely make out a mountainous black shadow approaching him, and he came to a sudden realization. This was very similar to the mountain spirit he had seen in the Star Moon Palace. However, it appeared that this mountain spirit was different from that mountain spirit. It was able to bring its main body with it. When Xiaohua turned his head to look again, he saw that there were 3 black figures of the same size walking over from afar and near him. Hee, it should be that punch of mine that attracted them here. Xiaohua smiled and stood up clumsily. Whew. Right at this moment, another strange gust of wind blew, and the rain that was originally pouring down fell towards the source of the strange gust of wind. However, a transparent ball of water that looked like an octopus flew over in the wind and rain, and it seemed to be several acres in size. Oh, is this a water spirit? Xiaohua was surprised. This was the first time he had seen a water spirit. Ao. The mountain spirit closest to Xiaohua was already approaching. It looked like a cheetah, and it was precisely the one that let out the most roars. Beside it, another mountain spirit looked like a multi-armed ape. On each of its 3 to 5 long arms, huge rocks bulged out, looking like the muscles on its arms. Oh, I understand now. Xiaohua's gaze swept over, and he came to a sudden realization. The main bodies of these mountain spirits are still unable to move. It seems that they have gathered the huge rocks nearby and used them as their shells. These mountain spirits must be envious of the spirit beasts running freely on the mountain peaks, so they transformed into their forms. Ao. The sound of wind howling seemed to be the sound of howling wind. The cheetah-like mountain spirit had already discovered Xiaohua's existence, and an ice cold will swept over Xiaohua. The mountain spirit had already pounced over. The mountain spirit appeared to be enormous, at least several thousand feet tall. Wherever the mountain spirit passed, the ancient trees were all pushed down. The weaker wood spirits fled in panic. Even the previously arrogant vines were hiding far away from it. Damn it, this is an unfair advantage. Xiaohua didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he stood up. He looked at the mountain spirit that was several times larger than him. The gust of wind attacking him could blow away the mountain rain, but how could it mess up the hair of a Mahayana cultivator? And not to mention that Xiaohua's hair was already wet from the rain. Xiaohua looked at the cheetah-like paw that was twisted and twisted in the air, and the howling mountain winds had already enveloped him. A faint smile appeared on his face, and he threw a heaven-shattering punch toward the gust of wind. Boom! A huge rumbling sound rang out, and then, puff, 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 puff. Bursts of air waves and explosive sounds emerged from the cheetah's left paw, rapidly spreading towards the cheetah's body. The hard mountain rocks turned into powder one after another, and the powder was blown away by the fierce wind. Moments later, a mountain-like mountain spirit appeared from the dust. It was like a burly man who had suddenly been stripped of his clothes, and it stood there in a very embarrassed and dazed manner. Chapter 4772. Ao Ao. The mountain spirit was originally in the shape of a mountain. After being at a loss for a moment, it suddenly roared again. Its entire body rapidly shrank, and finally, it turned into a rock that was dozens of feet in size and charged toward Xiaohua. Seeing the light and shadow overflowing from the rock, and the spiritual qi that was purer than the spiritual qi of heaven and earth condensing into thin threads, Xiaohua sneered. The impact of the mountain spirit was unparalleled, and it could even overturn mountains and seas. However, at this moment, Xiaohua's eyes were filled with disdain. Moreover, the mountain spirit in this state was a spiritual object refined by Taoist cultivators. Not to mention anything else, if Xiaohua refined this mountain spirit into the seal of overturning sea, the power of the seal of overturning sea would increase by a bit. Fortunately, Xiaohua was benevolent. If it was a spiritless object, he would have used it. Looking at this mountain spirit, Xiaohua couldn't help but think of the affectionate and righteous mountain spirit in the spatial spiritual world. Xiaohua's mind turned, and he raised his leg, kicking the mountain spirit that was charging towards him away. Rumble. Wherever the mountain spirit passed, rumbling sounds could be heard. No matter if it was an ancient tree or a mountain in front of him, they were all pierced through. GG. At this moment, the other ape-like mountain spirit also pounced from another direction, and that mountain spirit's mouth also let out a sound similar to that of an ape. Unsurprisingly, this mountain spirit was also kicked away by Xiaohua in the end. However, this time, it flew straight up into the sky, and when it would fall back down was not something Xiaohua had to worry about. Ao Ao. Although the mountain spirit was clumsy, at this moment, it also reacted. The other two mountain spirits stopped there awkwardly, and they looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Shua. At this moment, the water spirit that had previously absorbed all the rainwater within a few hundred miles had now turned into a huge octopus. Its water tentacles that were thousands of feet long streaked across the sky and fell towards Xiaohua. When the water tentacles fell into Xiaohua's eyes, countless colors instantly appeared, and endless colors rushed into Xiaohua's mind, causing him to stagger again. The water spirit was obviously more intelligent than the mountain spirit. Seeing Xiaohua like this, it became even more arrogant, and the tentacles hidden in the night sky madly pounced, wanting to tear Xiaohua to pieces. Xiaohua steadied himself and narrowed his eyes. He was about to throw out a punch, but when he heard the sound of the water spirit tentacles breaking through the air, Xiaohua smiled. He crossed his arms and stood there proudly. He looked at the tentacles indifferently and had no intention of fighting back. The water spirit naturally wouldn't try to probe Yang Kai like a human, sending out several tentacles to smash him. Hong hong hong. The water that had condensed into tentacles was naturally no longer ordinary rainwater. When the water that was harder than mountain rocks smashed onto Xiaohua's body, it turned into fragments. Although Xiaohua's body did not flicker with golden light, he still did not receive the slightest bit of damage. Woo-woo. The water spirit seemed to be angered by this humiliation and began to go berserk, its tentacles turning into threads of water that shot towards Xiaohua. The water silks enveloped the area around Xiaohua, and the mountain rocks and trees were reduced to dust. However, Xiaohua was too lazy to put up any resistance when he heard the power of the water silks that couldn't even tear the void apart. As the water silks fell on Xiaohua's body, they were unable to tear his skin. Xiaohua shrugged lazily, thinking about how he had made such a big fuss just now. He couldn't help feeling a little amused. In the end, he simply sat down cross-legged and allowed the water spirit to attack. After the time it would take to brew a cup of tea, the water spirit's water silks continued to bombard Xiaohua's face, not even scratching an itch. The water spirit even tried to entangle Xiaohua with the water silks, but Xiaohua only needed to use a little strength to tear them apart. A moment later, the water spirit took back its tentacles and water silks, its huge body rapidly shrinking, transforming into a ball of water several tens of meters in size. This ball of water slowly rotated in the air, sucking in the surrounding rainwater once more. At the same time, the rich world's yuan qi madly poured into it. However, as the ball of water gradually formed, a slightly terrifying aura emerged from it, causing Xiaohua to open his eyes. Without waiting for Xiaohua's gaze to fall on the water spirit immediately turned into a streak of light and rushed into the distant darkness, disappearing from sight. The water spirit's escape was extremely sudden. Not to mention the two stupid mountain spirits, even Xiaohua was baffled by its sudden escape. In fact, Xiaohua was not looking at the water spirit, but rather at the sky, because at this moment, the amount of rain falling from the sky had decreased a lot. He didn't know whether it was because the water spirit had absorbed it or because the rain had gradually stopped. Bang bang bang. Following that, the sound of running could be heard again. The mountain spirit, who had transformed into a wild beast, was running away even faster than before. Amidst the rumbling sounds, fine raindrops started to fall from the sky once again. The world finally calmed down. Even the mountain spirits and water spirits were unable to shake Xiaohua, so naturally the spirit creatures around the quagmire no longer dared to offend him. Xiaohua was finally able to calm down and think about the current situation. Needless to say, this place must be the 10,000 demon realm. Xiaohua closed his eyes. Inside his body, there seemed to be a small, rotating world. His thoughts were also coming out randomly. Although I encountered many dangers in the collapsing world at the boundary barrier, I'm finally here now. The collapse of the hidden realm of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm must have stopped Immortal Emperor Goqin, Ao Jia, and even the Virokana revered one from prying into my whereabouts. Even those who want to follow me will be disappointed. If this Xiao didn't know the space escape technique, if this Xiao didn't know how to travel in the opposite direction, if this Xiao didn't have a strong physical body, how could this Xiao have succeeded in reaching this place? However, we've arrived. But there was no way back. Previously, I was thinking of using that realm as a springboard. If I couldn't break the celestial formation, I could return to the 3 continents through that realm. Now, this idea was completely destroyed. Without a special technique or opportunity, it would be difficult to return. Of course, this was also a good thing. Without the space tunnel, the world-destroying ephemera could not reach the 10,000 demon realm. The descendants of the 3 continents human race, demon race, and dragon race should be able to continue to live and reproduce here. There are only 2 difficulties now. The first is that the 10,000 demon realm is too dangerous. Without an absolutely safe place, this Xiao can't send the descendants of the 3 continents out. Moreover, this 10,000 demon realm is different from the previous primitive desolation continent. There are many spiritual creatures here, and there are so many spiritual creatures around this small quagmire. The dangers of other places are unknown, and it is not realistic to set up a defensive formation for the human race. Also, the sea race and dragon race obviously have to be sent into the water, which is even more difficult to set up. Forget it, this Xiao should worry about the fortune gate first. Don't the other descendants have guards? This Xiao shouldn't get involved. Chapter 4773. The second difficulty is naturally how to find the space passage to the Dawn Rain continent. Xiaohua thought to himself bitterly, this Xiao is not good at finding directions, and I just happened to run into 2 useless assistants. One has her memory sealed, who knows when she will recover, the other has lived in the Heavenly Blessing Palace since young and only knows the general idea. Now it's even better, I just fell into the 10,000 demon realm and encountered a realm collapse. Who knows where I am now? According to the little white dragon, the 10,000 demon realm is several times bigger than the 3 continents. Where can I find it? Fortunately, this Xiao knows the space escape technique, I'll take a rest first, wait for my divine ability to recover, then I'll go find it. Xiaohua was secretly happy, but there was also a hint of sadness in his mind. After an unknown amount of time, a pa sound was heard in his ears. Xiaohua was slightly stunned and opened his eyes. Ah? The strange scene in front of him surprised this human Grand Ascension stage master. At this time, the 10,000 demon realm had disappeared, there was a clear and fragrant smell in the air, and the high sky was covered with stars. These stars were completely different from the stars in the 3 continents. Not only were they much denser, but the starlight was also vaguely colorful. Moreover, the stars were very large, there were some overlaps between them, and the colors intertwined, decorating the entire sky like a kaleidoscope. What was special was that in the corner of the starry sky, there were 3 moons of different colors hanging there, sprinkling different moonlight all over the earth. Xiaohua shook his head vigorously, rubbed his eyes, and tried to look again. Although the stars in the sky had disappeared a lot, the 3 moons were still there. The full moon in front of his head was neither big nor small, it was similar to the full moon that Xiaohua often saw. Like water and ice, the moonlight was clear and milky white. The one slightly behind was a purple full moon. This purple moon was twice as big as the previous one. Moreover, the edge of the purple moon seemed to have a sun-like flame. This flame was called the eerie purple moonlight that was projected into the night sky of the 10,000 demon realm. Parallel to the purple moon was a dark golden moon. This dark golden moon was only 30% the size of an ordinary moon. Moreover, this dark golden moon was not very bright. A layer of dim golden light that was softer than the mist scattered across the night sky. Xiaohua only looked at it for a moment and felt that the 3 moons began to rotate. He did not dare to look at it for too long and hurriedly lowered his head, muttering to himself, "The night of the demon realm is really beautiful." When Xiaohua lowered his head, he landed in the quagmire in the distance. At this moment, the quagmire was different from the previous intense battle. Layers of lotus-like spirit objects were already spread out. These spirit objects were only 40% of the size of ordinary lotus-like spirit objects. In the center of the spirit objects, there was something like a flower stalk. This flower stalk flickered with an extremely faint purple color. As the purple moonlight shone down, it slowly produced a faint purple brilliance. The sound Xiaohua heard earlier should be the sound of these flower stalks poking out. Looking at the other side of the quagmire, there were also inexplicable spirit objects poking out from everywhere. These spirit objects, without exception, were all flashing with purple light. Occasionally, there was also a faint dark golden light. Swish, swish, swish. There was also movement near Xiaohua. The vines that were torn apart by Xiaohua earlier were now secretly poking out from the ground. The broken vines were glowing like snow, and the wounds were slowly healing. Roar. A beast's roar came from the distant night sky. A pillar of purple moonlight fell through the sky and shrouded the area within 100 miles. In another place, there was also a roar that was not to be outdone. Another pillar of dim golden moonlight fell. Immediately after, countless sounds were produced. Endless pillars of moonlight and stars completely shrouded the earth. Even the quagmire where Xiaohua was filled with an even richer purple moonlight. Xiaohua did not use his martial arts, but when the purple moonlight fell, he did not need to use his martial arts at all. It quickly penetrated Xiaohua's skin, and a faint warm current mixed with a trace of wild aura poured into Xiaohua's body. No wonder it's called the 10,000 demon realm. Xiaohua secretly nodded. The energy of heaven and earth here is so rich. The power of the stars and moon at night is 10 times stronger than the 3 continents. Isn't this the demon race's paradise? Thinking of this, Xiaohua's heart was a little vigilant. After all, the laws of heaven and earth in the 10,000 demon realm were different from the 3 continents. The energy of heaven and earth here was so rich, and the power of the stars and moon was even more tyrannical. Maybe the heaven-rank powerhouses here had surpassed the limit of 9th-level elemental energy. Of course. At this time, Xiaohua suddenly thought, didn't the Rainbow Sea God Shell say it clearly that day? Bei Ming's strength is much stronger than mine. Although I did not reach the peak of 9th level elemental energy at that time, I can still infer that Bei Ming's strength may have exceeded 9th level elemental energy. From Dai Er's words, Bei Ming is one of the great sages in the 10,000 demon realm. In other words, there are great sages that are as powerful as Bei Ming. These great sages are all great sages that surpass the 1,000 demon realm. However, a moment later, looking at the gradually rotating halo in front of him, Xiaohua proudly said, "So what if it's 10th level elemental energy? In order to avoid the laws of heaven and earth in the 3 continents, I have already concealed my cultivation in the Star Moon Palace. If I remove the Immortal Talisman, how can my strength not be 10th level elemental energy? Even if it's the great sages of the 10,000 demon realm, if they block my path, I will still kill them. When I recover my divine power tomorrow, I will immediately look for the space passage." Then, Xiaohua's 5 hearts faced the sky and he rested. Unfortunately, Xiaohua's wish was beautiful and his ambition was praiseworthy, but he rested for more than 100 days. At the beginning of this 100 days, Xiaohua was quite anxious because there was not much time left for him, only 100 years. And he had just left the 3 continents and he had already wasted more than 100 days in this inexplicable corner of the 10,000 demon realm. Xiaohua struggled several times to leave the quagmire, but every time he walked a distance, he would return dejectedly. The damage caused by the collision of the realms was not only on his physical body, but also on the changes in the laws of heaven and earth. The 3 continents, the 10,000 demon realm, and the immature realm's laws of heaven and earth interfered with each other in his body. How could it be eliminated in a short time? Xiaohua almost thought that he would have to spend another 10 years or even decades to recover. 10 days later, Xiaohua saw that the rotation in his body had no intention of recovering, so he simply gave up escaping and took the initiative to immerse his mind into the rotation to comprehend, to see if he could find a suitable opportunity to stop the rotation. Chapter 4774. In the first 10 days, Xiaohua's mind was aimless. He couldn't find the source of the rotation, and even his mind couldn't keep up with the rotation. After another 10 days, Xiaohua's mind caught up with the rotation. After another 10 days, Xiaohua's mind was still attached to the rotation, comprehending the 3 different laws of heaven and earth. After another 10 days, Xiaohua's mind was moved. He began to use the One Heart Secret Technique and Qingqiu Mountain's mind strengthening method to challenge the laws of heaven and earth to strengthen his mind. After 50 days, Xiaohua's mind was unprecedentedly strong under this unprecedented opportunity. He gradually had the strength to stop the laws of heaven and earth. In the last 30-some days, Xiaohua had been using his mind to prevent the 3 types of world laws from wreaking havoc in his body. And in the end, although the 3 types of world laws still couldn't be completely stopped, their influence on Xiaohua had already weakened. Xiaohua could no longer see the multicolored world in front of him, and his mind was no longer spinning. Once his body returned to normal, Xiaohua immediately released Huang Tong from his body. Huang Tong was even worse than Xiaohua. She couldn't even stand still in the air. She flipped and flapped her wings. She shouted, "Xiaohua, take me back first. The impact of this realm is too strong. I haven't recovered yet." Xiaohua had no choice but to take Huang Tong back into his body. Then he focused his mind on the space. At this time, Xiaohua could already sense the space. However, the void outside the space was permeated with an extremely large amount of boundary energy. This chaotic boundary energy triggered the boundary barrier of the space. When Xiaohua's consciousness fell on it, it was as if he was stepping on ice and snow. It immediately slid away and he couldn't enter. "Damn it!" Xiaohua cursed. He retracted his mind and looked around. Then he released his divine sense again. When he understood, Xiaohua activated his spiritual power. Lightning flashed around him as he flew into the distance. The moment Xiaohua left, the quagmire immediately became lively. Whether it was the vines, the giant pythons, or the spirit flowers in the distance, they all became active. In these 100 days, each day felt like a year. Xiaohua retracted his mind and meditated to stop the laws of heaven and earth. His terrifying aura had already enveloped the area. At this moment, these spiritual creatures finally understood how powerful Xiaohua was. This aura was as ancient as time, as vast as the sky, and as heavy as the earth. Under this aura, the spiritual creatures felt that they were nothing more than dust. Xiaohua flew high into the sky, but he didn't rush towards a single direction with all his might. Instead, he released his divine sense to scout the surroundings. This was a desolate place. The mountains were extremely tall, the rivers were extremely deep, the ancient trees were extremely huge, and the forests were extremely dense. Everything was somewhat similar to the Thousand Demons' sacred realm, but everything was 30% or even several times taller. Xiaohua's divine sense swept across the area, and he could already see many spiritual creatures nearby. Some of these spiritual creatures were roughly at grade 4 or 5. Although they did not dare to make any strange movements under Xiaohua's pressure, when his divine sense swept across, these spiritual creatures were still arrogantly roaring, as if they wanted to challenge him. That's strange. Xiaohua withdrew his divine sense and frowned slightly. He thought to himself, if it says die, or said, then these 4th or 5th grade elemental powers should be some kind of earth rank powerhouse. Why do they look like they don't have any intelligence? Could it be that they weren't considered demons? They weren't considered spiritual creatures, but just beasts? Then, Xiaohua raised his hand and waved, tearing the void apart. Then, his figure flashed and flew into it. However, after a short while, Xiaohua flew out of the void with a strange expression. He looked around and was a little surprised. Then, he tore the void apart again. But after a short while, he flew out again and shouted, "Damn it, what's going on? Why can't I use the space escape technique?" After standing for a moment, Xiaohua activated the teleportation technique, and his figure immediately disappeared. When he appeared again, he was already 1,000 miles away. It's a little strange. Xiaohua scratched his head and said curiously, I can't use the space escape technique, but I can use the teleportation technique. Why is that? Xiaohua pinched his chin and thought for a moment. He already had an answer. However, after thinking for a moment, he still released Huang Tong. Once Huang Tong was released, the huge phoenix demon body was immediately fully revealed. Her figure could not be controlled at all and started to spin again. Xiaohua, Huang Tong said anxiously, why did you call me out again? Fellow Taoist, don't be anxious. Xiaohua chuckled and said, if we wait for the laws of heaven and earth to calm themselves down, who knows how long it will take. Let this poor Taoist lend you a hand. Huang Tong did not dare to open her eyes, but she felt that the entire world was spinning. She hurriedly shouted, this is the chaotic laws of heaven and earth. How can you help me? Can't you see that I'm fine? Xiaohua looked at the spinning Huang Tong with a smile. Huang Tong roared, how can I see you? Besides, if you want to help, why don't you let all the other fellow Taoists come out? Why help me? It's very simple. Xiaohua said with a smile, they are all in the space, not in my body. Right now, I can't enter the space, so I can only help you. Previously, Xiaohua and Huang Tong had discussed that from a safety point of view, it was best for the Thunderbolt Immortal, Feng Wu and the other doppelgangers to stay in Xiaohua's body and not enter the space. There was a risk that the space would not be able to sense them. However, later on, when they had to cross the space barrier, the two felt that Xiaohua had to transform into the phoenix demon body. The doppelgangers hiding in the body would be a burden. It was better to let them enter the space. Of course, in the end, the two did not decide what to do. They just waited until they reached the space barrier. Who knew that before they could enter the space barrier, Xiaohua would find that the space barrier had collapsed. The two did not even have time to discuss the other doppelgangers before they rushed into the space barrier. Therefore, when they reached this place, other than Huang Tong and Xiaohua's body, the other doppelgangers stayed in the space. All right. Huang Tong said helplessly, you can try first. But when Xiaohua saw Huang Tong agree, he immediately calmed his mind and transmitted his thoughts to her through his mind. At first, Huang Tong did not say much. Her entire demonic body was still spinning around Xiaohua. 2 days later, Huang Tong suddenly let out a clear cry. She flapped her wings and rushed into the distance. Xiaohua was shocked and hurriedly wanted to remind her. Unfortunately, he started too late. With a loud sound, Huang Tong's demonic body hit a mountain peak. Her valiant phoenix body blew off a mountain peak. However, after a moment, Huang Tong spread her wings again and rushed into the sky. Although the flight path was still flipping and shaking, it was obvious that she had a tendency to control herself. Chapter 4775. Xiaohua. Huang Tong cried out in surprise in Xiaohua's heart. I have to say, you are really a cultivation genius. Do you know what you are comprehending? This is the supreme law of heaven and earth in the Shenyuan space. Yi Jian only comprehended 2 halts out of the 10 halts, and he was able to break out of the Shenyuan space. But you actually comprehended 3 laws of heaven and earth at the same time. Are you still human? AI, poor child. Xiaohua proudly smiled. You've been away from home for far too long, so long that you don't even know it yourself. That's because there's a heavenly Tao avatar in our space. Aside from cultivating Taoist techniques, I also have a way to comprehend the heavenly Tao. This Xiao has already broken away from the heaven-piercing realm previously and entered the heaven glimpse realm. Now, because I've witnessed the heaven and earth laws of the 3 worlds, I've mastered all my previous accumulations through a comprehensive study, advancing the heaven glimpse realm a step further. What a heaven glimpse! What a heaven glimpse! Huang Tong was happy and spread her wings for thousands of miles. She said to Xiaohua in her heart, I wonder what other amazing realms are there? Xiaohua thought for a moment and shook his head. These realms are all mysterious and can only be understood and not explained. I am only using human language to explain and cannot express the true meaning. Of course, if I had not reached that step, I would not know how to name it. Perhaps I had gained something before, but it was all nonsense. Huang Tong had already disappeared, but there was a clear connection in Xiaohua's heart. Even his mind could clearly sense Huang Tong's position. The secret technique of twin breath has made a substantial breakthrough. Xiaohua slightly sensed the position of Huang Tong and immediately rejoiced. He smiled and said, if we cultivate for another 100 years, the mind of Xiao and the 8 fellow Taoists should be able to completely cover the hidden immortal continent. At that time, we should be able to lay out the 9 regions' great array. Just as Xiaohua thought of this, Huang Tong's scream sounded in his heart. Xiaohua, quickly help me. Xiaohua was stunned. His figure flashed and he immediately teleported to the place where Huang Tong disappeared. Xiaohua appeared in the void and saw a strange beast twice the size of Huang Tong in the sky. It was standing on a demonic cloud and charging at Huang Tong. The strange beast looked like a python dragon, but it had a pair of bone wings that were over 10,000 feet long. On the bone wings, there were thousands of bone spikes that shone with a pitch-black brilliance under the sunlight. The beast's claws landed on Huang Tong's left wing. Huang Tong quickly flapped her wings and strange runes appeared, tearing the void to the left. Bursts of spatial power came from the cracks and swept toward the beast. Under normal circumstances, Huang Tong's move would have blocked the beast's attack. But at this moment, Huang Tong's body was swaying. She couldn't control her direction at all. Just like how Xiaohua bullied the weak, this attack didn't hit the beast at all. Instead, it missed and rushed towards the ground. It obviously missed. Seeing that the beast's claws were about to pierce Huang Tong's back, Xiaohua immediately rubbed his hands together. Rays of crystal light fell into the lightning hand. Then, with a rumbling sound, a hand that was several times bigger than the lightning hand used on the 3 continents appeared out of thin air. Not only was the hand of lightning powerful, but it also carried a kind of anger and madness. Before the hand even landed, the space under the hand had already been restricted. Many pitch-black vortexes appeared in the void and tore the strange beast's body apart. The giant hand even squeezed the strange beast's body until it was distorted. The strange beast howled crazily and struggled with all its might. Many barbs grew out of the bone spikes and attacked Xiaohua's lightning hand. At this time, the lightning hand not only had lightning, it also had gold and purple light. These lights hit the bone spikes and the pitch-black bone spikes instantly turned into powder. A strange beast with 7th level essence power. Xiaohua used his power to grab the strange beast and unconsciously frowned. In his heart, he said to Huang Tong, "This is the most powerful strange beast I've ever met." Hiss, what's going on? In other words, Xiaohua's expression suddenly changed. Lightning surged around his body and his body trembled. With this trembling, Xiaohua's lightning hand instantly collapsed. The strange beast with 7th level essence power suddenly broke free and tried its best to fly into the sky. Its bone wings flapped a few times and disappeared into the sky. "Xiaohua, what's wrong?" Huang Tong saw the change and hurriedly shouted. Xiaohua didn't say anything. He raised his right hand to signal Huang Tong to shut up. Then, he used a Dao technique to draw the heaven and earth essence energy of the 10,000 demon realm into his body. The 10,000 demon realm naturally had heaven and earth essence energy. When this heaven and earth essence energy entered Xiaohua's body, there were ripples in Xiaohua's lower dantian. Although these ripples were not big, they were enough to disturb the nebula nascent soul. Looking at the nebula nascent soul refining the heaven and earth essence energy without any special changes, Xiaohua patted his head again. A brilliance bloomed like a lotus platform. The rank 8 scattered nascent soul stepped on the brilliance and appeared in the space. Pa. The 8 tribulations scattered nascent soul was originally invisible, but at this time, the scattered nascent soul's entire body seemed to grow bigger and bigger. In a moment, it was already hundreds of feet tall. It was actually similar to Xiaohua's golden body. Moreover, as the 8 tribulations scattered nascent soul grew, a layer of strange marks appeared on the surface of the invisible nascent soul. Every time a mark appeared, the scattered nascent soul's body would boil violently, as if its hair was being cut off and the marrow was being cleansed. When the marks covered 50% of the nascent soul's body. Rumble. High in the sky, the 2 suns emitted enchanting sunlight. Layers of thunder began to spread under the sun. 9. Ninth tribulation? Xiaohua was dumbfounded. He didn't expect that the 9th tribulation of the scattered nascent soul would be born here. How is this possible? When the scattered nascent soul has passed the 9th tribulation, it has already reached the realm of flesh in the spirit. It can replace the laws of heaven and earth in the tribulation and wait for ascension. But this is obviously not a suitable sign for ascension. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes and looked at the sky. Although the sky was changing, there was no trace of ascension aura at all. Moreover, opposite the 2 suns, 3 moons were also revealed. The merciless moonlight was also attracted to the nascent soul's body. The figure that was originally invisible was now more and more clear. This is the minor tribulation of the Xianyuan space. Just when Xiaohua was surprised, Huang Tong exclaimed, "How? How can there be one in the 10,000 demon realm? What is a minor tribulation?" Xiaohua hurriedly asked. Chapter 4776. Xianyuan space is a space composed of many interfaces. Outside of these interfaces, which is the edge of Xianyuan space, there is a space similar to the interface barrier. First, we have to break through the spatial barrier of the Xianyuan space. We have to break through this barrier before we can reach this space. The heavenly tribulation that is born in this space is easier than breaking through the heavenly tribulation of the entire Xianyuan space. Therefore, it is called the minor heavenly tribulation. Oh, I understand. Xiaohua thought for a moment and nodded. That is to say, the interface of 10,000 demon realm is not the same as the interface of the 3 continents, but half a grid higher, or even less than half a grid. Therefore, the stage 8 scattered nascent soul has to go through a minor heavenly tribulation to adapt to the heaven and earth origin energy here, to adapt to the laws of heaven and earth here. I guess this is also the reason why I waited until here and couldn't recover. With that said, Xiaohua looked at the lightning in the sky and frowned. It is nothing for my stage 8 scattered nascent soul to go through a minor heavenly tribulation here. But what if the scattered nascent soul returns to the 3 continents? Will it immediately face the real major heavenly tribulation? No need to think too much. Huang Tong smiled. The minor heavenly tribulation can be seen as a preview of the major heavenly tribulation. Don't you see the marks on the surface of the scattered nascent soul? That seems to be the mark of the laws of heaven and earth. The minor heavenly tribulation here is less powerful than the major heavenly tribulation, and after going through the minor heavenly tribulation, the immortal chi in the scattered nascent soul's body may be richer, and then the power of the major heavenly tribulation will be much smaller. Yes, I understand. Xiao Hua nodded. This minor heavenly tribulation is equivalent to reducing the power of the major heavenly tribulation, but there are more tests inside. There are advantages and disadvantages. Fellow Taoist is right. Huang Tong replied. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. The problem is, I don't want to go through any minor heavenly tribulation now. I just want to quickly find the space passage to Xiaoyu continent. And I released my nascent soul just to let this nascent soul explore the abnormality of the heaven and earth origin energy in 10,000 demon realm. Xiao Hua, isn't there a saying in the human race that haste makes waste? Don't worry. Huang Tong comforted, let's take one step at a time. All right. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, since you want to go through heavenly tribulation, then let's go through heavenly tribulation together. I don't have the time to let you transcend the tribulation one by one. As he spoke, Xiao Hua released the other 100 or so stage 8 scattered nascent souls. More than 100 rank 8 scattered nascent souls appeared together. The 2 suns and 3 moons suddenly swelled up. Moreover, the lightning that filled the sky rapidly thickened. A huge vortex appeared in the sky above the lightning. Thick lightning pillars crazily smashed down. The entire world was roaring. Ah, sure. More than 100 scattered nascent souls teleported to within a radius of 1,000,000 miles. A huge capital sky star formation was formed. In the sky, lightning spread rapidly. Huang Tong laughed and said, in that case, I will join in the fun too. With that, Huang Tong opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of demonic qi. The 100 beast flag also fell into the air. The 99 demonic beast souls were interspersed between the 100 scattered nascent souls. A strange fluctuation appeared above the demonic beast soul, and this fluctuation rushed into the void. Boom boom boom. Amidst the rumbling, the sky around the huge vortex was torn open again, and the stars that filled the sky were revealed. 99 pillars of stars suddenly fell down, covering the demonic beast soul and also protecting the 100 scattered nascent souls. It covered the entire capital sky star formation. While Xiao Hua was worried about his nascent soul undergoing the minor heavenly tribulation, he was also frowning as he looked at the vast land within 1,000,000 miles. His mind was filled with a myriad of thoughts. Although he had suddenly released these 100 nascent souls to undergo the minor heavenly tribulation, he also wanted to use this method to attract all the demon clans within 1,000,000 miles. He wanted to test them and intimidate them. But now, seeing that the minor heavenly tribulation was about to fall within 1,000,000 miles, other than the trembling demonic beasts, no other demon clan flew out. It's really strange. Could it be that there are no demon clans in the 10,000 demon realm here? While Xiao Hua sighed and was puzzled, the minor heavenly tribulation of the 10,000 demon realm finally fell. For a total of 49 days and nights, the thunderbolts continued to strike. Layers of pitch-black realm power and the power of laws that Xiao Hua was familiar with also rushed into the bodies of the 100 scattered nascent souls in the arena. It washed away the remaining traces of the 3 continents and began to condense the spirit bodies and change the rules in the spirit bodies. The 99 demonic beast souls in the middle of the thunderbolts also quickly condensed into light pillars of stars and moons during this period of time. Each demonic beast soul also borrowed the power of the thunderbolts to reach the point where Yin gave birth to Yang and reincarnate from death. If there were any special opportunities, they could really be reborn as real demonic beasts. When the thunderbolts and clouds dissipated, it was another starry night. Xiao Hua kept the scarred, scattered nascent souls. Huang Tong waved the 100 beast flag to keep the demonic beasts. The two of them looked at each other with helplessness in their eyes. Huang Tong said, Xiao Hua, it seems that we are unlucky. Although we have arrived at the 10,000 demon realm, we have arrived at a desolate place. Otherwise, with such a big movement, the demon clan would have come to investigate long ago. This is not the worst news. Xiao Hua replied, the worst news is, The 10,000 demon realms heaven and earth origin chi is different from the 3 continents. It is not particularly suitable for the human race. It should be said that it is very suitable for the dragon clan. When the heaven and earth origin chi falls into the meridians of the human race, it is very easy for the meridians to burst. Even if the heaven and earth origin chi is refined, when it falls into the lower dantian, it will cause changes. It will make the golden core unstable and the nascent soul irritable. The reason is that there is a problem with the 2 suns and 3 moons in the sky. If this problem is not solved, our human race will not be able to survive in the 10,000 demon realm. It is probably because of this that there is no human race in the 10,000 demon realm. Our Fortune Gate disciples. If we were to take root here, I am afraid it would be extremely difficult. Why would the Fortune Gate disciples take root in the 10,000 demon realm? Huang Tong asked meaningfully, why would we use the 10,000 demon realm instead of the Shenhua continent? Fellow Taoist may not understand what I mean. Xiaohua's mouth was a little bitter as he replied, previously, I also had the intention of sending all my disciples to the Shenhua continent. But there are 3 problems. First, the Fortune Gate disciples in the Soaring Dragon Mountain range are different from the original Fortune Gate disciples in the Shenhua continent. They are exposed to different laws of heaven and earth. I don't know if they can cultivate smoothly in the Shenhua continent. Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish, Huang Tong shook her head and said, since the laws of heaven and earth in the Shenhua continent are different, the laws of heaven and earth in the 10,000 demon realm are even more different. You are not worried about leaving them in the 10,000 demon realm?